Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 9 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 17, Team Bonding. No, pit no. Bulkhead sighed in exhaustion as he swiped through the images on screen. On the one hand, having his best buddy on Earth was fantastic. Sure, when he arrived 2 days ago, things hadn't gotten off to a good start with that Decepticon impersonator, but since then, it's been nothing but an awesome time all around. He and Springer had managed to catch up properly, and the latter had been more than willing to tell stories of his past exploits to the kids. Made up for the whole incident in spades. Heck, even his mini-cons were getting on great, aside from the occasional gas leak from Sabak. But then came the snag, finding an appropriate vehicle mode for Springer. Or rather, vehicle modes. That would be an unprecedented chore considering he wouldn't just need 2 vehicle modes, but both had to be able to transform into each other, and they had to be compatible with his body type. And that's where they hit a roadblock, nothing fit. I can't believe there aren't any cars on this planet that could feasibly transform into copters. Springer threw his hands up in defeat, turning away from the monitor. We've been at this for hours and we still haven't found anything that can fit my body type. I know. Bulkhead rolled his optics. Makes me wonder how Shatter and Dropkick got that lucky with their vehicle modes. Having trouble, boys. The two wreckers perked their heads up to see Windblade and Jazz moving over to them, the former raising an eyerage with her hands on her hip. Still not finding anything. Springer groaned and shook his head. It's pointless. No ground vehicle on this planet fits me. Found plenty of choppers, but the kinda cars that humans drive around in are puny. Jazz folded his arms and chuckled at his expense. Hey, well, maybe you're just not looking in the right place. Have ya tried military hardware? I thought we were supposed to be robots in disguise. Springer emphasized. Doesn't scanning a military vehicle kinda defeat that purpose? Just then, from the opposite side of the room, Optimus entered, overhearing the conversation. Normally, I would agree, Springer. It is important to keep our cover among humans, and military vehicles are very conspicuous. However, I will admit that in your case, an armored car and attack helicopter are both not easy to hide. He raised his hand to the monitor. If you cannot find anything pedestrian to scan, then feel free to delve into military vehicles. Well thanks, Commander. Springer nodded. I appreciate ya giving me the okay on that one. Still, even with that, I bet finding a good alt mode for me won't be a walk in the park. Bulkhead came up and gave him a pat on the back. Don't worry, Springer. We'll find a disguise for ya. Promise. Honk honk. The bots all perked their heads up at the sound of incoming horns, directing their attention to the main entrance to see Bumblebee, RC and Strongarm all come rolling in. The 3 Autobots pulled to a halt and all at once, their doors opened and the students came piling out. There you guys are. I was wonderin' when you'd all get here. 3:30 every day, Bulk. Mina winked as their rides transformed into robot mode behind them. You really should know the times by now. She craned her head up and gave a wave to Springer. Heya there, Springs. How's it goin'? Springer grinned and saluted back to her. I'm doin' alright, kid. How was your day at local educational facility? The 1A students all stared at him incredulously at that wording. Springer. Izuku asked. It's called a school, just so you. Oh, I know. I just wanted to keep you all on your toes. Haha. The students all either groaned or rolled their eyes at Springer's joke, though the wrecker made sure to apologize for it. Hey, I know, bit of a dumb joke. But hey, on a planet like this, it's important to stay entertained. Kyoka smirked and placed her hands on her hips. Oh, so we're a form of amusement to you, now. Bulkhead, your friend's picking on us. The group of Autobots, aside from Optimus, all laughed at her comeback, especially Bulkhead. Baha. Oh man, see, Springs. I knew you'd fit like a glove around here. Denki took a quick glance around the room, seeing that everyone was here aside from his and Eijiro's own buddies. So, I'm guessing Sides and Sunny are out on patrol, huh? Indeed, Denki. Optimus nodded. They should be back soon, though, so worry not. Ajiro put his hands behind his head. Man, those guys always get to go do cool stuff without us. Kinda wish we could get in on that, too, but he ultimately shrugged it off. Ah well, always next time. So, what have you guys been up to? Anything interesting? PSH, yeah, sure. Springer rolled his optics, making his sarcasm clear. If you call scrolling through your internet to find at least 2 fitting vehicle modes, interesting. I see. Tenya placed a hand to his chin in thought. So, you're having trouble finding a disguise for yourself. I suppose that could be fairly difficult, especially with all of the different kinds of vehicles there are on Earth. Ochako offered a smile up to the tall, green bot. Don't worry Springer, I'm sure you'll find an Earth vehicle that'll fit ya eventually. We've got all sorts of different shaped cars here. Yeah, but here's the thing, that's doubly hard in my case. Springer crossed his arms and leaned up on a nearby wall. With my body type, I not only have to find a good ground-based vehicle, but a reliable flight mode that both me and that other vehicle can fit into. That got several of the teens confused, though Izuku, Kyoka, Momo and Mei had at least some idea of what he was talking about. In particular, Mei's eyes widened when she realized what Springer meant. Wait a second, Springer, does that mean you're a trip? Rough. Gia. Slam. Before she could finish, however, Mei was suddenly tackled to the ground out of nowhere by Sabak, the wolf mini-con having pounced onto her from behind. She landed flat on her back and grunted as the mechanical canine's weight was felt on her shoulders, and she was met with his muzzle in her face as he panted and happily wagged his tail. Within seconds, he started licking her, which she had to curb by lightly pushing him off with some soft pets. Ha 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 ha. Ah, Sabak, good to see you too, boy. Sabak. Mina beamed happily, causing the wolf to snap his head up and immediately bound over to her. Within seconds, she received the same treatment as Mei did. Ahahaha. Oh, such a good boy. Did you miss us? Oh, I bet you did. One by one, the mini-con quickly went around and gave everyone else a similar greeting, with some of them managing to stay on their feet as he slobbered their faces. Ah, as much as I love that dog, Kyoka muttered as she wiped herself with a rag, he's a bit too enthusiastic when we come here from school. Ah, I think he's awesome. Denki shrugged. He reminds me of my dog that I've got back home. He glanced down at Sabak as he sniffed at his shoes. Which I think he might smell. And he's so adorable. Momo reached down and gave the metal wolf scratches behind his ears, making him kick his rear leg against the floor. Are you ready for some playtime, boy? Are you? Oh, I bet you are. She craned her head up to Springer curiously. By the way, where's Fangblade? She hiding again? Springer pointed up toward a window. Nah, she's right over there. The teens set their sights on the window and saw the Smilodon mini-con resting on the sill, her front paws crossed while one of her rear legs hung down from it. Her optics were closed and she was purring contently. She's basically been there all day, really. She's a bit more of a night prowler. Yeah, that makes sense. Izuku nodded. Cats really like to hunt mostly at night, after all. He set a determined smile over to Optimus and balled a determined fist. Speaking of which, Optimus, I've been working super hard on my new, full cowling, ability, day and night. I think I might be ready for any new challenges you have to throw at me. Beneath his faceplate, Optimus smiled at the resolute young man, recognizing his readiness. That is good to hear, Izuku. Perhaps today may be a good time for us to, WOAM. 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 Everyone was on high alert immediately as the base's alarms went off, with even Fangblade waking up from her little nap. Or perhaps it may have to wait. What's going on? Springer asked, his hand going for his swords. We under attack. Negative. Red Alert assured, poking his head into the room. It's just the proximity alarm. Agent Fowler is here. Springer raised an eyebrow. Agent who? He's our liaison on this planet. RC explained. And serves as our connection with Sector 7, who've helped us keep our secret on this planet since we got here. So the feds are here, huh? Well, guess this is as good a time as any to get more introductions out of the way. Sabak, Fangblade. The two mini-cons growled affirmably and transformed into their disc-shaped pod forms before zooming up and plugging into Springer's shoulders, the wrecker immediately making his way toward the door. Well, what are we waiting for? Don't wanna keep this Fowler guy waiting. The other Autobots watched him leave, all of them wearing incredulous looks. Bulkhead, don't take this the wrong way, but, Strongarm started warily, but Springer seems a bit, ZRKT, impatient. Bumblebee finished. ZRKT, like, totally antsy. Bulkhead rubbed the back of his head with a sheepish laugh. Hee, yeah, Springs doesn't exactly do patient all that well. He gave a shrug up to Optimus. He's the type to go all in and get things done, especially when it comes to meetings with higher-ups. Prime nodded back down to him. It's understandable, Bulkhead. I am well aware that the Wreckers haven't exactly had a good track record of being cautious. That I will not deny. Bulkhead agreed. Now come on, let's get after him before he gets even more restless. The group of Autobots and humans, minus Red Alert, went outside, and were immediately met with the sight of a Sector 7 helicopter coming in for a landing, and Springer wore a somewhat annoyed expression. Springs. You okay, bud? Oh yeah, fine, Springer assured as he continued staring at the somewhat small chopper. Totally not reminded of the fact that nothing on this planet seems to fit me. Bulkhead sighed and shook his head in defeat. There was just no pleasing him, was there? The helicopter came to a landing and its side doors slid open, allowing not just Agent Fowler to come out, but as it happened, Agents Burns and Fairborn were with him as well. The kids all smiled at the sight of the latter in particular. Marissa, hey, Kyoka shouted over the propellers as they slowed. How's it been? Hi guys. Marissa returned as the three agents came up. Things have been pretty good, actually. Wow, we haven't seen you guys in a while, huh? May mentioned. It's been what, over a week? Burns gave her a nod of his own. Roundabout. That's why we decided to tag along. Figured we owed you a visit. He craned his head up to Springer with a small grin. Plus, ya know, we wanted to meet the newcomer, too. The blonde man sent a salute up to the wrecker and greeted him, welcome to Earth, space traveler. Yes, welcome. Fowler hailed as well, all while going up to Springer and extending his hand. Name's Special Agent William Fowler, and Thess are my associates. Jacob Burns. And Marissa Fairborn. The brunette bowed her head slightly. We hope you've been enjoying your time on Earth so far. Springer shifted his optics between the trio of agents before reaching down with his index finger to shake Fowler's hand. Yeah, it's been interesting, to say the least. He bowed his head back to them as well. It's a pleasure. Fowler raised a brow up to him. Right back at ya. And trust me, we've already heard about how interesting your arrival was from Prime. He saw Springer sour somewhat after that. Trust me, I get it. I've had to deal with a few criminal shapeshifters myself back in my day, and yeah, it's not fun. The green bot was slightly confused, but only for a second. Yeah, right. You humans have powers too. I have to keep reminding myself about that. Fowler sent him an eye roll and a small chuckle. Hey, well, most people have powers, yes. Or, quirks, as we call them most of the time. He placed a hand over his chest to emphasize his point. But around 20% of the human population actually don't have quirks, and I happen to be one of them. Springer's metal brows rose up in intrigue. Well, that's news to me. Man, I should probably study up more on how this planet works. Don't sweat it. Marissa waved off. You're new here, you'll get used to it. So, I'm guessing that you came here by yourself, Springer. Well, not exactly. Springer flexed his shoulders forward and called for his partners. Alright guys, show him your stuff. And just like that, the indigo and crimson discs popped off again and started flying around the whole yard, spinning around rapidly with their saw blades deployed. The agents gave a startled gasp as the discs went sailing over their heads before coming back around toward the ground, and before their eyes, the discs transformed into a blue robotic wolf and red saber-toothed cat. With their jaws slack and eyes wide, the agents could only stare at the two robot animals, baffled by what they were seeing. Momo offered them a bright smile and asked, surprised. Don't lie, you definitely are. Aren't they so cute? Mina exclaimed. Neither Fowler, Marissa or Burns responded immediately, their minds still trying to comprehend exactly what was in front of them. They were tiny transformers that were discs that became robotic animals. Dog, Burns muttered. And cat, Marissa furthered. What in the name of George Washington's teeth are these things? Fowler exclaimed. It's one thing to come to terms with the whole humanoid robots transforming into vehicles thing, but household pets transforming from Beyblades. The heck is a Beyblade? Strongarm whispered. RC could only shake her head. I have no idea. Tenya cleared his throat and he explained. Well, Agent Fowler, for one thing, these are no mere domestic cat or dog at all. He placed a hand on Sabak's head, making the wolf bot perk up a bit. Sabak here is a robotic wolf. He then gestured over to the saber-toothed cat, hoping that she would snap at him. While Fangblade is a Smilodon, or in layman's terms, a saber-toothed tiger. Springer knelt down and pet both of his partners on their backs. And they're my mini-cons. These little guys live on Cybertron's moons, and at times, they're known to grow attached to us larger bots, figuratively and literally. Oh, well that's interesting. Marissa brightened up as she approached Fangblade, reaching her hand out to her. Hi there, pretty lady. Wait, Marissa, don't. MYAAARRRR. But Kyoka's warning came too late as Fangblade mewled and snapped at her, making Marissa scream and pull her hand back. Burns was quick to put his body in front of her for an added layer of protection. Whoa, whoa. He glowered at the large cat, who glared right back at him. Bad kitty. Momo sighed and went up to Marissa, who was close to hyperventilating as she held her hand close to her chest. Sorry, Marissa. Fangblade isn't exactly the friendliest of mini-cons. She's been with us for 2 days and none of us have been able to lay a finger on her without her lashing out. She gently grabbed Marissa by the shoulders and led her over to Sabak, who was sitting dutifully with his tongue lolling out of his mouth while he panted. Now, Sabak is a completely different story. He's a very good boy, aren't you? Ruff ruff. Sabak barked as his tail started wagging. Well, alright. Marissa hesitantly reached her hand out to Sabak and settled at muzzle, and thankfully nothing happened. A sigh of relief escaped Marissa's throat and she slowly started running her hand back and forth against the wolf's face. Ha, thank goodness. Good to see that at least one of them is well behaved. Slam. And within seconds, Sabak had reared up and tackled Marissa to the ground, licking her just as he had done with everyone else just a few minutes prior. Ah. Oh. Ha ha. Stop. No, please. Ha ha ha. I'm ticklish. Ah ha ha. Springer couldn't help but grin a bit at the sight. Yeah, that's pretty much his usual greeting. You get used to the slobber, eventually. Better getting slobbered on than bitten, right? Jacob said as he eyed Fangblade, who curled up on the ground while still keeping her eyes on him. The agent made an, I got my eye on you, motion with his hands, hoping that his warning came across to the robot animal. So, Springer, how are you enjoying Earth so far? Seen some sights around Japan, I'm guessing. The wrecker just rolled his optics again. PSH, if ya count the wide open ocean, the local woods and this place, then yeah, I've seen some sights. He folded his arms and leaned up against a nearby tree. Haven't been able to find any vehicle modes that fit me or work well with my transformation scheme. Your planet's vehicles really don't suit a triple changer like me. Aha, May exclaimed. I knew it. Whoa, that's actually pretty sweet. Kyoka grinned. Finally, a triple changer that's not trying to kill us. Izuku couldn't help but chuckle at that. Hee hee, yeah, kinda shocking that all of that happened almost 2 weeks ago now. Time sure does fly. And all of that got the students' attention very quick. Wait, back that up a bit. Eijiro jumped in. Did you say, triple changer? Does that mean you have more than just 2 modes? Denki questioned further. Hey, it sure does. Bulkhead affirmed, going over to Springer to give him a pat on the shoulder. Yep, Ol Springs here doesn't just have 1 vehicle mode, he's got 2, 1 land, 1 air. This made the students all virtually stunned, aside from, of course, Izuku, Kyoka, May and Momo. The Sector 7 agents were also surprised, but a bit less so since they too had seen something like that firsthand. Wait, you mean like how Shatter and Dropkick were? Fowler guessed. You're telling me that you're able to do that too, hot shot. Springer gave him a single nod. Pretty much. Mina's jaw was on the ground by that point. What? She snapped around to the agents and her friends. You mean you guys knew about this awesome thing before? And just like that, Mina whirled around toward the wreckers as well. And you guys didn't even bother to mention it until now either. Why not? That's probably the most awesome thing ever. The two bots and the humans eyed one another before all giving the same answer, you didn't ask. Mina facepalmed at that. Ochako placed a finger to her lips, mulling over the whole thing. Wow, 2 alt modes, 1 robot, the brunette mused. Wonder how that's able to work. I believe I can shed some light on that. Optimus stepped up to provide the answer. Triple changers aren't exactly your typical Cybertronians. They are very rare, and in some cases, can be quite unstable. Many triple changers who emerge from Cybertron have some oddity to them, whether that be a special ability, their size differing compared to normal Cybertronians, or their sanity being fractured due to the contrasting nature of their alternate modes. The Prime crossed his hands over his chest and moved his head down. And many wonder why most triple changers are Decepticons. Well, I'm now demanding that we see this triple changing in action. Mina stated, marching up to Springer to make sure he knew she wasn't fooling around. Come on, Springs. Let's see what you've got. Springer glanced back and forth between every human there, and they were all staring at him expectantly, many of them with intrigued smiles. With a small chuckle and a shrug, he resigned to the girl's demands. Sure. What the heck? WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. With a small leap, Springer started to transform, with his head tucking into his chest panel as it came up and over his collar piece. His arms and shoulders rotated and folded into one another to make the front fenders of his vehicle mode before compressing against his chest, which formed the hood and grille. His midsection shifted inward as his legs rotated around, folding back to form the rear of his vehicle mode as a pair of small tail fins folded out from either side. The dark green panel on his back shifted down, revealing a small, blue cockpit. With everything now in place, Springer landed on the ground in his Cybertronian armored car vehicle mode, his engine revving up nice and loud. So, pretty cool, right? All at once, everyone became awestruck at the sight. Whoa, so this is what a Cybertronian vehicle is like. Ajiro beamed. Awesome. Ochako smiled as well, taking note of how the front of the vehicle was much wider than the rear, though it still appeared quite sleek despite its armored look. It's so different from anything I've ever seen. Yeah, and it's really cool. Mina nodded. So, how's this supposed to turn into something that flies? Springer backed up a bit to give him some more room to do his thing. Alright, don't blink. Chiz TSCHZZWHRRTSCHZZCHK. All at once, nearly every part of Springer's vehicle mode began shifting and moving, particularly the rear and side sections. The back of the car split, flipped and rotated all of its parts until they became what appeared to be the tail of a helicopter, with the rear fins and wheels forming the tail's rotor. The fenders meanwhile shifted back so that the sloped front ends were behind the grille of the vehicle instead of in front of it, and a pair of stabilizer wings folded out from the sides as well. On top of these stabilizers, Springer's weapons folded out as gun emplacements, and even more surprising, his swords actually came out from the top of his alt mode to form the propeller blades. Within seconds, the Cybertronian armored car became a Cybertronian attack helicopter, which took to the air immediately upon completing his transformation. Well, how do you like that, Mina? Springer strafed around the group, seeing their jaws slack once again. Pretty sweet or what? Mina's hands flew up to her head in disbelief. Oh, my God, that is so freaking awesome. Dude, it's freaking badass is what it is. Denki clarified. Fowler scratched his chin in thought. Now that, I won't disagree with, young man. He raised a brow up to Springer as he hovered overhead. Though that said, I guess now I can see why you're having such a hard time finding Earth-based vehicles to turn into. I don't think I can name anything on this planet that could change from a car into a helicopter so easily, aside from a few vehicles in our possession, maybe. Wait, seriously. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Springer transformed back into robot mode and landed in front of the agents with a twoom, making the earth shake beneath him. Well, what are you waiting for? Take me to whatever compound you have and I'll scan something, no problem. Whoa now, slow your roll there, soldier. Fowler raised his hand. I said, maybe. I'll have to take a look at what we've got before setting you up with anything. But, on the chance that we don't, there could be another option for you as a disguise, of sorts. The Autobots and students all became quite confused at this. Agent Fowler, to what are you referring? Optimus inquired. The agent reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device, what appeared to be a hologram projector of some sort. I'm talking about this. He pressed a button and a logo came up on the tiny projector, an acronym that read, MASK. Sector 7 has a sister division that's in charge of making all of our military hardware and vehicles. We call it the Mobile Attack Strike Common Division, or MASK, for short. Okay, Springer tilted his head and folded his arms. So what does this, MASK, have to do with me? Fowler pressed the hologram projector again and the image changed to that of a large truck. MASK is the foremost innovator when it comes to combat vehicles, especially ones with concealed weaponry or gimmicks, if you will. They can take your average semi-truck. With another click of a button, the truck's image started to move and shift until a whole bunch of hidden weaponry was now on display, leaving many surprised. And have it become a tank in everything but appearance. Whoa, that's not as impressive as transforming robots, but still pretty cool. May admitted. Jazz lowered himself down to take a closer look at the schematics for the weaponized truck, finding it to be somewhat familiar. Woo, now that's a loadout, but I can't help but feel like it looks kinda familiar. Well, MASK and Cybertronians may be closer to one another than you think. Fowler elaborated. Remember, Bumblebee over there wasn't the only one who landed on Earth all of those years ago. Many Autobots were surprised for a moment, but Bumblebee seemed particularly astonished. ZRKT, Red, ZKRT, Wing. Wait, so, does that mean that humans in the past managed to study Red Wing's remains and that's how they made this, MASK, division of yours? Windblade asked. That seems a bit morbid, now that I think about it. Trust me, if they had known about you like how we do today, I doubt they would have done it. Fowler assured. I'm sorry if this is a bit much for you, but I figured you all should know. Optimus raised his hand. Worry not, Agent Fowler. It's all in the long, distant past. Though with that said, I'm surprised that your findings haven't gone public by now. Your species would be far more advanced by now if the government had let Cybertronian technology become used by civilians. The Prime tilted his head toward the Sector 7 agent. So tell me, why is that not the case? With the arrival of quirks, all other scientific studies were put on hold to discover just where they came from and how they worked. Fowler explained further. It's only recently where more and more of this reverse-engineered Cybertronian tech is starting to get out into the wild, mostly to help heroes create new and improved support gear. Though MASK is still in possession of most of it. Springer leaned forward, trying to get back on topic. Okay, so again, I ask, what does this MASK division have anything to do with me? Well, if you were paying attention, MASK deals with creating unique military vehicles that can be used in any situation. Fowler went on. Be it land, sea, or air, they can come up with something for it. Heck, they provide the boys overseas with their vehicles all the time. A small sigh escaped him as he recalled one of their creations. Ah, the Skystriker is still a work of art. So what you're saying is that you think they have something that I can scan? Fowler shook his head with a knowing smirk. Nope, probably not, he pointed up to Springer with a raised brow. But you, my friend, would fit in quite well among MASK's lineup of vehicles. Think about it, MASK pretty much specializes in converting vehicles already. Burns pointed out. Granted, they've never made anything on the scale of true triple changing, but if we say that you're the first ever type of hybrid land and air vehicle to ever be made by them, then I think we can get away with saying that your alt modes can be something that could be made on Earth. He wore a sly grin and placed a hand over his chest. In fact, I'm a personal friend of the squadron's leader. He and I were stationed in the same platoon in boot camp. I'll just give Tracker a call and we'll get you set up. Springer put a hand to his chin, thinking over the proposal. You know, now that I think about it, that doesn't sound half bad. His optics moved back over to Optimus. I mean, sure the cons would see me coming, but if I can get away with the public thinking I'm a normal vehicle made by the military, I think I'd be pretty set. What'd you think, Commander? Optimus hummed to himself, thinking it over on his own. Well, it would be taking a slight risk. He focused down to Agent Fowler once again. However, if this MASK unit of yours can successfully convince the public that Springer is one of their experimental creations, I see no harm in at least trying it. That's just what I was hoping to hear. Fowler nodded in approval as he jabbed his thumb to Springer. Trust me, Prime, setting your boy up as a MASK vehicle will be as easy as pie. Off to the side, Kyoka couldn't help but roll her eyes. Well, hopefully it'll be as easy as someone who actually knows how to make a pie. That earned a grumble from Fowler, which was what she was hoping for. But hey, if you think this idea will work, then we're not about to stop you. Yeah, I actually think it sounds pretty good myself. Bulkhead concurred as he gave Springer a fist bump. Better than just searching endlessly for vehicle modes, right? Hey, no kiddin'. Springer knelt down and gave the Sector 7 agents a thumbs up. Thanks for hooking me up. I'll try my best to fit in with your MASK guys. Fairborn gave him a salute. Hey, it's no problem. Given what you had to go through when you got here, I just imagine it's one last thing you've got to worry about. It was then that Springer furrowed his brow, his mind going back to a couple days back as well as his capture. And subsequently, he was reminded of who had visited him in his cell that day. Yeah, you've got a point there. He stood up and faced the Autobots once again. Which reminds me, we've got to talk about something. The bots were all instantly put on edge by the tone of Springer's voice, with Bulkhead being particularly concerned. Springs, what do you mean? Everything okay? Windblade asked. Not exactly. Springer shook his head. There's something that I need to tell all of you, something I neglected to say when I escaped from the Khan's ship. His hand reached up and rubbed the back of his neck. I honestly wanted to spill it after I got here, but I didn't want to bring down the mood after everything that happened, you know. Optimus nodded in understanding, but kept his own serious demeanor about him. Of course, Springer. What is this news you wish to share? You all might want to brace yourselves. Everyone, even the kids and Sector 7 agents, were all intently focused on Springer as he told his story. When the Khans locked me up in their holding cell, I got a couple visits. One of them was from Starscream, but the other one, he sighed and balled up his fists. The other Khan that visited me was Unicronus himself. Meanwhile, across the world in central Canada, Starscream was practically ecstatic with how things were going so far. His brothers had only arrived the other day and they had settled in rather well. Of course, the fact that they had brought Shadow Striker and Nitro were also happy little bonuses, but his main concern was making sure that Skywarp and Thundercracker had all the commodities they needed. He had to butter them up somehow, after all. How else was he going to convince them to join in his crusade in overthrowing Megatron? But now, he had called them to the bridge to discuss something rather important with them. Brothers, now that you have made yourselves at home here on the dark side, I believe it's time for both of you to adopt your own Earth disjuices. And lucky for you, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Starscream transforming to his F-15 mode, sitting idle so his brothers could scan him. I happen to have the perfect one at the ready. Well, go on now, don't be shy. Skywarp and Thundercracker stared at Starscream for a second, turned to one another, and then echoed a unanimous, nah. They waved off their brother and immediately started toward one of the bridge's consoles, much to Starscream's bafflement. Nah. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. What do you mean, nah? Starscream, we may be brothers, but that doesn't mean we have to share everything with you. Thundercracker emphasized. We already share the same body type. Skywarp said as he began inputting commands into the console, linking up to Earth's internet in order to find some suitable alternate modes for them. The last thing we want is to share your jet mode. Something similar. Sure. Thundercracker shrugged. But not the exact same thing. The Air Commander sneered at that. Oh sure, I offer you a free vehicle mode on a silver platter and without even a thought, you both turn me down. He huffed and folded his arms, facing away from his brothers. Some family you are. But Skywarp recognized this game. Starscream was an avid player of it, even in their early days. Being the middle sibling to come out of their emerging pool, Starscream had always vied for attention. And as the eldest, Skywarp quickly caught on to his brother's vain attempts to do so. "Ah, go whine about it to your spark mate. Swift is not my spark mate." Starscream quickly denied. "I keep telling you this. In fact, I'm fairly certain she might have an attraction to Bari." "Whoa, whoa, hey." Without warning, Swift suddenly barged into the room and clamped her hand shut over Starscream's vocalizer, giving him a warning glare. She shifted her optics around, making absolutely certain the police bot wasn't there. Swift narrowed her gaze and growled, "If you let that get out across the entire base, I will never forgive you." And just then, a familiar voice suddenly sounded out from out of nowhere. "Yeah, you tell, I am, Chica." In a glitchy flash of purple, Nitra suddenly appeared from out of nowhere, her cloak having deactivated. Swift and Starscream were both taken aback as the magenta femme smirked at them. After all, you never know what could happen if that info leaked into the wrong hands, he. Swift's aggression immediately went straight to Nitra, pointing her finger to her in ire. "Nitra, I swear to Primus, if you plaster anything related to that on the computers in this ship, I will." Hey, don't worry about it, comprende? Nitra assured. "Tranquillo, I know way better than to do something like that. I'm not that evil, after all." A small sigh escaped Swift's intakes and she nodded. "Good, glad we're clear on that. Though that doesn't mean that Shadow won't know about it, too." Nitra pointed up toward the aforementioned Shadow Striker, who was hanging from the ceiling by her grappling hook. She was upside down and had the wire tied around her leg, leaving everyone surprised. Shadow descended down toward the others, her face directly in front of Swift's. "Ah, Amor, such a lovely feeling, is it not?" She unhooked her grapple and did a flip onto her feet, the wire coming undone from her leg. "It is a feeling that I believe I once felt long ago, but now, I can hardly recall that time. And let me guess, you're gonna say something overly dramatic, like, and now I feel nothing, right?" Swift deadpanned. Au contraire, Shadow Striker shook her head as she pulled out one of her weapons. A red, dual-edge energy blade. "I used to believe that, but on our travels through space, I learned something when we happened upon a colony of giant spiders." She gazed into her blade as she recalled the memory. "As I observed them, I initially thought they had no emotion, that their hearts never beat. But after further study, I found out the truth." Quick as a snap, she snapped her arm up and the point of her blade met with Swift's forehead, much to her shock. "At the moment of the kill, they are never more alive." "So you're saying that killing Autobots makes you feel good?" Swift asked. "'Cause, like, how good are we talking here? It's not something weird like a euphoric feeling, is it?" Shadow Striker pursed her lips and scoffed. "Cherie, I do not know whether to encourage you or slap you." She sheathed her blade and placed a hand on Swift's shoulder. "The point of what I am trying to say is, good luck, and don't let him slip away." Thanks, I guess." Swift shrugged. "Well, while you guys were talking about that, Skywarp piped up. I think I just found a couple of great jet modes for TC and I." He jabbed his thumb toward the screen, leading the group of Decepticons to see two jet models on it. One was called a Shenyang J11, while the other was a MiG-29 Fulcrum. They seemed fairly similar to Starscream's F-15 Eagle mode, but at the same time, they both had very telling differences from one another. Thundercracker was eyeing the MiG in particular. "Ooh, now that looks pretty fast." His onboard scanners analyzed the form of the jet, broke it down into blueprints in his processor, and the information went straight to his T-Cog. Within moments, Thundercracker's armor shifted into parts of the MiG-29, fully acclimating himself to his new vehicle mode. Alright. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. And just like that, Thundercracker had transformed into a blue, black and silver version of the Fulcrum, with red and white pinstriping on his wings and tail fins. "Oh ho ho, yeah, now this fits." Nitra whistled in approval. "Woo, frag yeah, dude. You're looking good." Skywarp went back to the screen, focusing in on the J11. "Guess this means I'm taking this one then." He scanned the jet and went through the same process as his brother did, before then transforming into a black, purple and silver version of the Shenyang J11, complete with his own purple and white pinstriping. Yeah, this'll do just fine. "Oh man, boss, you can pull off any look, I swear." Nitra continued with a sly smirk. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Skywarp transformed again and sent her a serious glare. Alright, enough kissing up, Nitra. He nudged his head over to the console again. Shouldn't you maybe find a vehicle mode for yourself? And Shadow, what about you? Have you found anything? Non, Skywarp. Shadow Striker denied. Not yet. Without wasting a cycle, Nitra slid right up to the console, popping a few gears in her knuckles before typing away into the console. Well then, let's get searching. There's gotta be something on this planet we can fit our chassis into. Phrasing, Swift shouted. Nitra glanced over her shoulder and gave Swift a wink. Oh, trust me, I know what I said. Swift facepalmed and groaned. Warp, is this what you had to deal with every day for the past 3 centuries? Don't remind me. Skywarp grumbled. Aha. Nitra piped up just a couple seconds later, taking everyone off guard. Found something. Already. Starscream shouted. You can't be serious. How? The hacker scanned the vehicle she found with a small chortle. HM, when you're a hacker working on a primitive world's low-tech web, you get good at finding something really quick. Nitra's body began to change as well, with her shoulders, doors and legs all changing to accommodate her new vehicle form. Now, let's take this mamacita for a spin. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Nitra's breastplate moved up over her head as it retracted into her torso, forming the hood of the vehicle. Her shoulders compressed into her sides as her arms folded into the undercarriage, all while the tires in her shoulders rolled free on the ground. Her legs moved up to become the bed of her new truck mode as her back formed the roof and her door wings took their rightful place. Once all was said and done, Nitra had transformed into a Hyundai Santa Cruz, and she was loving it. Ahaha. Oh yeah, baby. She revved her engine up loud. Now this is stylish. Oh yes, how great. Starscream said, his voice dripping in sarcasm. Yet another Decepticon who decided that rolling is far better than flying. With a loud screech of her tires, Nitra spun around toward the Air Commander. Hey, you guys got your way of getting around, we've got ours. Not that hard to figure out. Shadow Striker went over to the console next, typing in a few commands of her own. A few moments later, she ended up stumbling across something that piqued her interest greatly. Oh, now that is a disguise worth taking on. Shadow scanned the vehicle on the screen, and once again. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. She transformed, with her head folding into her chest as it widened out to form the front of the car. Her arms swung back as the panels on her forearms became the car doors, and the tires on her back folded down into their proper places. Her entire body swung up into the car as her back moved up to become the roof, with her legs folding up to become the entire rear of the vehicle. Her spoiler then shifted back into its correct position on the car, completing her transformation. By the end, she was an entirely purple Lamborghini Aventador, a disguise that she was very happy with. Ah, fantastique. The sniper sighed. Do we seriously only have 4 Decepticons around here capable of flight outside of the Viacon Armada? Starscream protested. Swift reached over and gave him a pat on the back. Might wanna get used to it, Screamer. But hey, look on the bright side, the Autobots only have 2 air-capable soldiers compared to us. Well, I suppose so, but still, is it too much to ask for more wings around this place? A long, uncomfortable silence had overtaken the Autobots after Springer had told them about his experience on board the Darkside, and how he had ended up meeting one of the most mysterious Decepticon generals to ever enter the war. Whoever this, Unicronus, was, however, the gravity of his presence was completely lost on the humans. The 1A students, May and the Sector 7 agents were just left confused after Springer had finished talking about him, so of course, they felt the need to ask. So, who exactly is Unicronus? Ochako asked. And why does he sound like such a big deal? Izuku added. The question easily took Springer off guard, raising a metal brow up to Optimus. You didn't tell him. Optimus craned his head down slightly. No, I was hoping I wouldn't have to. Not this soon, at least. He set his optics down to the group and began to explain. But, I suppose there is no point in delaying it now. Children, Unicronus is a Decepticon shrouded in complete mystery. No one knows where he came from or why he joined the Decepticons, but what everyone does know is that because of him, they were able to capture several sizable victories in the later days of the war for Cybertron. He's captured Autobot strongholds, eliminated several powerful garrisons of troops, and all while knowing pretty much our exact movements ahead of time. Windblade went on. He's part of the reason why we fled Cybertron in the first place, because we were on the receiving end of so many attacks from him that we couldn't keep up. Holy crap, this con must be the real deal, then. Kyoka concluded. But what do you mean he's mysterious? RC was the one to answer that. That's the scary part, no one has ever seen what he looks like. He's never once been seen on a battlefield. Jazz went on. He calls all his shots exclusively behind the scenes. He lowered his head with an irritated expression. It's both really strange and extremely frustrating. And any bot who has seen him has never come back to tell the tale. Strongarm craned her head over toward Springer. At least, until now. But the wrecker shook his head. Yeah, but even then, he kept himself hidden in the shadows. It's almost like he didn't want me to see his face, that is, not until he could offline me. Tenya placed a hand on his chin at that, finding the point intriguing. Fascinating, it's almost like he didn't want you to know what he truly looked like until your true final moments. He raised his hand stiffly and proclaimed, truly, this Decepticon is a genuine villain. Exactly. He's probably the worst Decepticon out there aside from the big four of Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave, and of course, Megatron. Bulkhead summarized. And now apparently, he's on Earth. He tilted his head toward Springer again curiously. And for some reason he knows you on a personal level. All Springer could do was shrug. Believe me, Bulk, I wish I had some answers. But outside of some wild guesses, I couldn't tell ya why. Well, ain't that just swell? Fowler sarcastically quipped. Not only do we gotta deal with the Khan's second in command, but now we've got one of their best strategists to deal with, too. Izuku furrowed his brow grimly. I have to admit, this really isn't the best news. Who's to say this Decepticon can't figure out exactly where we're hiding right now? Optimus nodded down to the two in understanding. Izuku, Agent Fowler, I understand your concerns. But rest assured that we will do everything in our power to make sure that we all remain safe, even from Unicronus. He extended his hand toward the base. And, if it makes you feel better, it's safe to say that being on this planet gives us an advantage over Unicronus already. Momo's eyes brightened up as she realized what Optimus was saying. Hey, yeah, Prime has a great point. She raised a single finger, explaining to her friends, considering Earth must be far different from Cybertron, plus the fact that the base is cloaking all of the Autobots' signals, Unicronus probably has no idea how to go about planning against whatever we may have planned. Which means that we essentially have the home field advantage. Mina realized with a big grin of her own. Haha. That's awesome. They can't stay one step ahead of us if they have no idea what we're gonna do. Phew, now that is good news. Denki sighed in relief. But that doesn't mean we can't relax either. Eijiro noted. If Unicronus is as dangerous as you guys said, then we'd better be on the lookout if he ends up making some sort of plan. Once more, Optimus gave a nod. Precisely. And more importantly, it's now more imperative that you children stay safe. He set his optics over to RC and Bumblebee. Thus, I believe it best if the both of you stay around UA. High for the entire school day from now on, just as an extra precaution. The duo straightened up and saluted. Yes sir, Optimus, sir. We'll be sure to keep an eye on the school, just in case. ZRKT, you can count on us. Bumblebee affirmed. Excellent. Now, I believe it's time for training to start. Prime. Everyone's heads whipped around toward the base, only to see Red Alert standing in the doorway with a serious demeanor about him. All of you, come in, quickly. I've found something that all of you will want to see. The Autobots and humans all eyed one another curiously before following the medic back inside, gathering into the main console room as he pointed his laser tool at the screen. Look at this. Up on said screen, there was a series of Cybertronian characters, ones that were unreadable to the human eye. This left the kids and agents confused, but the Autobots themselves were taken off guard. Wait, are those coordinates? Strongarm asked. Red Alert smiled proudly. Indeed, they are. You're looking at the result of several hours of hard work to decipher a single string of Cybertronian code from that data pylon. Marissa's eyebrows rose in interest. Wait, you mean the one you found in Greece last week? The one that Optimus' mentor left for him? The very same. Red Alert confirmed. Optimus moved closer and couldn't help but grin beneath his faceplate. Excellent work, Red. This may only be the first in a vast variety of relics hidden on this planet. Very well done. Meanwhile, the students were still trying to make heads and tails of the series of random squiggles, but none of them could understand them. So what exactly are these supposed to mean, dude? Kyoka questioned. Yeah, this just seems like just a bunch of scribbles to me. Izuku concurred. Well, perhaps they'd be more familiar if you saw them like this. Red Alert pressed a button and the characters instantly chanced to ones that were much more comprehensive to read. They were now easy to read Earth numbers, and what's more, they were set up in a familiar pattern. Better now. May gasped in realization. Oh my, those are longitude and latitude coordinates. This should get us the exact location of where that relic is. Exactly. Red Alert nodded before punching them into the main console's geolocator. And it seems like they lead to, here. A large map of the world popped up on screen before it zoomed in on the United States, specifically the southern portion. Immediately, a small blip appeared on the map, signifying exactly where the coordinates lead. According to this, the relic should be just a few miles outside the city of Austin, Texas. Strongarm was visibly befuddled after hearing this. Okay, no offense to you guys, but humans have the strangest names for their cities. What, are we supposed to think that Polyhex and Yakan are normal by our standards? Denki retorted. Fair point. Strongarm conceded before turning her attention back to the main topic. Is there anything significant around the relic's location? Anything that could risk our cover being blown like a small town? Red Alert did a search on the coordinates through the internet, and he came up with a result instantly. Well, it seems this was the location of a large rock quarry at one point. However, it was abandoned many years ago after an Earth villain attack. He faced the Autobot team with a shrug. Going by what I've found, it doesn't seem like that place doesn't see much activity anymore, so you all should be fine. Good work, Red Alert, and thank you. Optimus bowed his head briefly to his old friend before going over to his first lieutenant. Jazz, organize a retrieval unit. We're headed after that relic on the double. You got it, Prime. Jazz saluted as he addressed everyone behind him. Alright, listen up. Whoever wants to head out and help get this relic home, step up now. Bulkhead was the first to offer his help, slamming a fist into his hand. I'll come along. Since this thing is in a quarry, you guys might need help if it's buried. His face lit up as he shifted his optics over to his best buddy. Hey, Springs, you should come along, too. It'd give ya a chance to stretch your legs and get out of this place for a bit. What'd you say? Springer chuckled and eagerly stepped forward. Oh, I thought you'd never ask. Anything to see something different. The wrecker moved his sights up to Optimus. That is, if the commander sees it fit. Of course, Springer. We would be honored to have you accompany us. Prime approved. Well, you heard the chief, guys. Springer turned towards Sabak and Fangblade, the two mini-cons standing by his foot. We've got work to do. The robotic animals roared in approval and transformed into their disc-like forms, plugging onto his shoulders unquestioningly. RC glanced down toward Bumblebee, offering him an inviting smile. Hey B, why don't we go, too? It's been a while since we were out on a big mission like this, right? Bumblebee's optics lit up in excitement. A chance to spend more time with RC. Of course he would take that chance. He gave her a thumbs up and spoke approvingly through his radio. ZRKT, sign me up. ZRKT, let's get moving. As much as I would like to come along, I think I'll sit this one out. Windblade waved off as her attention went down to Momo. I promised a certain someone today that we'd do some more combat practice. Yeah, same here. Strongarm echoed as she looked to Tenya and Ochako. These two have some of their own ideas that they wanna show me, too. It's gonna be a busy day for training, I can say that much. Optimus nodded to both of them. I understand. Best of luck to all of you in your training. He craned his head down to Izuku with an apologetic gaze. But on the topic, I must apologize, Izuku. As much as I myself would like to continue our training, I'm afraid this must take priority. Oh, it's okay, Optimus. Izuku assured. Trust me, I understand. We'll train more when you get back. Yeah, go get that relic. Kyoka encouraged. We'll see ya when ya get back with it. At that, Springer's face scrunched up in confusion. You guys make it sound like none of you are coming along. What gives, huh? He tilted his head toward Optimus again. They're a part of this team, too, aren't they? What's the harm in bringing them on a little relic hunt? Bulkhead stepped in before Prime could answer. Springs, I think you're forgetting something, the potential of Decepticons showing up. The big green bruiser's sights went down to Mina, who wore a somewhat guilty face. Let's just say that there have been some hairy situations before where the cons showed up without warning, and the kids nearly ended up in the crossfire. We can't afford to take that chance. Much to everyone's surprise, however, Springer just gave a shrug. Please. As far as I'm concerned, you guys are worried over nothing. From what I've seen and heard, they've been able to defend themselves pretty well against the cons with those powers of theirs. Plus, those cons are pretty much a bunch of boltheads anyway. Heck, if I can get away from them, anyone can. He placed his hands on his hips somewhat defiantly. So again, I ask, what's the big idea leaving some of them behind if they've got nothing else to do? You can't be serious, can you? And once more, before Prime could answer, Fowler suddenly piped up. The wrecker's attention was brought down to the agent as he stormed up to him, his ire directly squarely at him. What you're suggesting isn't only reckless, but completely insane. You're asking children to step into a potential war zone. They've only just started their hero training. Bad enough that they had to deal with an unexpected villain attack on their school, but you actually think that they'd be able to hold their own in a battle if it breaks out. Springer bent forward so he could return Fowler's glare. Well, if these kids can take out a single Viacon by working as a team, then I'd say they probably can. He immediately took note of the teens' nervous expressions and went to reassure them. Hey kids, I get it. You guys feel bad about killing a Viacon. But take it from someone who's had to do that to several of them, you shouldn't be ashamed of having to defend yourself, especially not in war. The students all eyed one another awkwardly before Mina piped up. Well, yeah, we get that. But, it's not exactly what a hero would do. Exactly. Marissa piped up as well. These kids aren't trying to become soldiers, Springer. They want to be heroes. And unless it's for an absolute last resort, heroes don't kill. Well, alright then. Springer abdicated, seemingly. Then we'll bring him along and they won't have to kill the Viacons. If they get into trouble, they can use their powers to defend themselves. He jerked his thumb toward himself and the Autobots. We'll take care of the hard stuff. Fowler sighed and facepalmed. You really don't get the rules regarding quirks, do you? I've been on this planet for all of 2 days, fleshy. Springer said with narrowed optics. If you wanna enlighten me, feel free, but I'll probably make an argument against it otherwise. Enough, Prime commanded, putting an edge in his voice to get everyone's attention. This argument has gone on far enough, he furrowed his metal brow at Springer. I appreciate your vouching for the children to come along, Springer, and I can concede that you make several valid points. However, the safety of the children must also be taken into account. Fowler threw his hands up in appreciation. Thank you. Finally, a level head in all this. Which is why I will allow it, but only if Agent Burns accompanies us as well. And just like that, Prime's statement was immediately thrown into question. What? All of the Sector 7 agents shouted while some of the teens were intrigued at the proposition. Prime, what in the Sam Hill are you talking about? Fowler bellowed. Optimus' tone was contrastingly calm as he explained. I'm afraid that Springer does bring up some considerable points, Agent Fowler. I initially didn't want the children too involved with this conflict myself, but with Unicronus of all Decepticons on Earth, it is imperative that the children be able to defend themselves successfully against the enemy. He raised his hand in understanding. I know that you, and likely the UA faculty, will have your objections. However, if the children wish to keep assisting us here on Earth, they will have to learn not just to defend themselves, but to work with us as a unit. But Optimus, they're just kids. Marissa implored. They can't. Marissa, with all due respect, The agents whirled around in shock as Izuku stepped up, taking even his fellow students by surprise. "You guys said it yourself, we're the same kids who dealt with a villain attack at our school." He pointed between himself, Mei, Momo and Kyoka. And on top of that, S04 managed to help take down Shatter back at the docks. Without wasting a beat, he gestured over to the rest of the group. "And as much as I hate to admit it, we did take down that Viacon, and subdued Frenzy." Kyoka nodded as she stepped in as well. "Izuku's right. We've been able to handle most challenges that the Decepticons have thrown at us. And every time, we've come out on top." She jerked her thumb over to Burns. "Besides, as much as I hate to admit it, having Buzz cut over their come with is actually a smart decision." Burns narrowed his eyes at the remark. "Hey." Ajiro came up as well, balling his hand into a fist and hardening it. "Point is, we don't want to stand back on the sidelines. Not if there's anything we can do to help. Hell, if that relic really is buried in a rock quarry, I can name several different ways my quirk can be used to help." "Yeah, mine too." Mina nodded. "I've been melting rocks the entire time I've been training here. The least I could do is put it to good use." Fowler pursed his lips as the kids made their arguments, and as much as he didn't want to admit it, he could appreciate their tenacity. Burns. "Yes sir. If you so much as let a hair on these children get hurt, you will be hearing it from me." The agent couldn't believe what he was hearing from his superior. "Wait, that's it. You're seriously going along with it? As an experiment?" Fowler emphasized. "Whether or not this'll be a regular occurrence is up in the air. But like Prime suggested, you're in charge of the kids' safety on this mission." He pointed to Izuku, Kyoka, Ajiro and Mina, who were all smiling hopefully. "At the first sign of any cons, I want all of you to get out of there. And if it does come down to it, use your quirks for defense only." "Understood." "Yes, sir." The four echoed as their friends cheered them on in victory, aside from Tenya, who still seemed unsure of this. "You're certain that this is what you wish to do, Midoriya?" the bespectacled teen asked. "This could be far more dangerous than even you could expect." Izuku sent his friend a sympathetic grin. "Believe me, Iida, I know the risks of something like this. But Prime said it himself. If the Decepticons have someone this dangerous on their side, then it's important we learn the ropes of defending ourselves against them. Besides, we may not even see any action at all." Kyoka pointed out. "Getting the relic could be so easy that we'd get it out of there before the cons even show up. And if they do, we'll just bridge back." Mina winked. "We'll be fine, class rep, don't worry." With a small sigh, Tenya's shoulders slumped, relenting to his friend's wishes. "Very well, just make sure you come back alive. Be safe guys." Ochako agreed. "And bring back that relic. I'm locking the coordinates into the ground bridge now." Red alert announced over by the metal platform. Within moments, he had the vortex open, inviting the Autobots to drive through. "This should take you directly into the quarry. Keep in mind, the relic won't just jump out at you. You'll have to search carefully." Optimus and the others readily stepped onto the platform, the leader giving Red a nod. "Thank you, old friend. We shall return." Just then, Springer stepped up next to him, and Prime eyed him seriously. "I sincerely hope that your arguments hold truth, Springer. If they don't, I'll take full responsibility if anything happens to the kids." Springer offered. "Trust me, I'd hate anything to happen to him, but this is something they need to experience. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK." With that, Springer transformed into his armored car mode, just as Ajiro was moving up onto the platform. "Yo, Spikes." The redhead stopped just as Springer opened his canopy. "You want a lift?" Ajiro broke out into a huge, toothy smile. "Would I?" He hopped up onto the vehicle and slid into the cockpit, with the glass cover lowering down as he took his seat, and he was greeted with a bunch of flashing gizmos inside that left him clueless. Whoa, so this is what riding inside a Cybertronian vehicle is like. Pretty neat, huh? Springer activated his seatbelts, which crisscrossed over Ajiro's chest. "Now hang on, little man. It's time for you and Mina to get your wreckin' legs. Oh ho, bring it on." Once everyone was transformed and the humans were all loaded up, Optimus gave one last request to Red Alert. Inform Sideswipe and Sunstreaker of the situation upon their return, and have them on standby in case we're in need of backup. Red Alert saluted to him as Prime raised his arm, giving his signature command, Autobots, roll out. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHK. The 6 Autobots and 5 humans drove through the ground bridge immediately after, leaving the command center in an uncomfortable silence following the vortex's closing. So, any bets on how long it'll take before this all goes horribly wrong? Not helping, Kaminari. Ank. Back at the dark side, Starscream and the others were all caught off guard when a loud alarm suddenly started sounding off throughout the whole place. Skywarp, Thundercracker, Shadow Striker and Nitra all transformed back into robot mode as a red light started flashing as well, which only made Starscream more annoyed. Oh, what now? At that moment, Unicronus entered the room, bringing everyone's attention to him. Look alive, people. The Autobots are on the move. He made his way past the group, with Starscream giving him the stink eye as he entered in more commands into the main console. Within seconds, he brought up a map of the globe, showing that several Autobot signals had suddenly popped up in the southern United States. And they're pretty close, too. So, what do you boys think? He faced the new Seekers and raised a questioning brow. Think you two are ready to get our servos dirty? Skywarp wore an eager yet nefarious smirk, reaching for his dual shotguns. Oh, yes, I've been waiting for this. It's time to scrap Optimus Prime, for good. Let's just get this done and over with. Thundercracker said as he took out his pulse rifle. Whatever their game is, we gotta put an end to it, preferably without revealing ourselves. I would think that'd be obvious, Thundercracker. With another exasperated sigh, Starscream stepped up in front of his brothers and placed his hands on his hips confidently. In any case, Seekers. Our time has come. Let us show exactly what these Autobots were capable of as a unit. As the Seeker trio left, Swift, Shadow Striker and Nitra all stayed behind, though the Copter Femme was quick to share a sly grin with the two. So, I just got a new observation probe up and running. You gals wanna see if they screw this up or not? Oh, pit yeah, Down south, meanwhile, the ground bridge opened up at the rock quarry site, and the Autobots came rolling out seconds later. Prime, Jazz, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead and Springer all pulled to a halt to let the humans disembark, before then transforming into robot mode themselves. Alright, everyone, gather up. Burns belted out, taking the students by surprise. Now that we're on site, you kids are to stay within my line of sight at all times. I won't be having any clowning around while we're here, is that clear? Kyoka couldn't help but roll her eyes. PSH, the only clown around here is you. She muttered. What was that, sir? I was just complimenting your buzz cut, sir. Burns grimaced at Kyoka as she smirked right back at him, all while Eijiro and Mina did everything they could to hold their laughter back. Admittedly, Izuku, B and RC were trying to keep it together as well, but they were more subtle about it. This isn't a joke, Missy. Burns chastised. You heard both Fowler and Prime. While we're on this mission, you're to abide by the rules. You're lucky that I actually respect Prime's orders, bucko. Kyoka groaned as she and the others walked off. Prime and Izuku hung back, however, while Burns let out a short, frustrated growl. Grr, I can't believe that girl. He snapped his head between Optimus and Izuku, his arms out at his sides. Is she seriously still upset with me about what happened a couple weeks back? If it's one thing I've learned about Kyoka, Agent Burns, it's that she doesn't just let things go so easily. Izuku pointed out. But why? We're all on good terms now, so what is there to be mad about? Optimus crouched down, deciding to add his 2 cents to the conversation. Agent Burns, if I may. I realize that you believe that simply helping to free me and take down Shatter and Dropkick has made up for what you have done, but you still threatened the safety of Kyoka and her friends. I know, and I apologized for it. Burns emphasized. Prime gave him an understanding nod. I'm sure you have. But take it from someone who has had to gain the trust of several soldiers in this war, it isn't something that's simply given, it's earned. He set his sights over to Kyoka, the punk rocker still storming off with the others. And speaking of experience, certain individuals are harder than others to do that with. Burns pursed his lips and lowered his head slightly, mulling over that thought. Well then, what do I do? That, I do not know. Optimus admitted. That is up to Kyoka to decide. The Autobot commander rose to his feet and started after his team. Now come, we must locate that relic. Izuku followed after Prime dutifully, with Burns bringing up the rear as he let that piece of advice stew in his mind. The team of bots and humans traveled further down into the quarry, essentially moving down deeper and deeper into a huge, rocky hole in the ground. Thankfully, they had at least some pathways to stay on, and there were several cave systems that broke up the monotony of the terrain. RC had taken point in the lead, holding onto a tracker that had the exact coordinates of the relic programmed in. We're getting close, boys. She called back as the beeping on the device picked up. We should be directly on top of it in a few clicks. Ooh, I can't wait to see what we find. Mina exclaimed with a jump for joy. What do you think it is? Some kind of ancient tool. Ah, or maybe a powerful weapon. Or maybe it'll be a bauble that has no practical use. Bulkhead pointed out. Let's keep our expectations from reaching too high, Mina. Jazz swiftly approved of Bulkhead's thinking. Bulk's right. These relics haven't seen use in centuries, so I'm betting that a lot of them might not even work no more. He gave the pink girl a small shrug. We may get lucky, we may not. Who knows, really? Mina scoffed and folded her arms. You guys are no fun. I still hope it's something super duper cool. Springer gave a laugh and sent her a thumbs up. Haha, now there's some optimism. You'll love to see it. He lowered his hand down and offered it to Mina for a high five. Up top, Mina. Woo, you betcha, Springs. Clang, ow. Everyone got a good laugh at that before suddenly, the tracker began beeping and buzzing through the roof, leading RC to raise her hand. Whoa, settle down, guys. We've got a hot one. She showed the tracker to everybody, showing that the signal was in the direct center of its radar. Take a look. We're right on top of it. RC stepped away and started moving around, trying to home directly in on it. Let's see, it should be somewhere right. The intelligence officer wandered right next to a rock wall and the device went absolutely crazy, leading her to grin victoriously. Here, everyone, start digging. Alright. Eijiro hardened up his arms again, eager to get to work. Let's get to it. Midoriya, you in. Right. Izuku began focusing on One for All, letting it flow throughout his entire being as he too smiled eagerly. One for All, full cowling. Quick as a flash, Izuku was right up on the wall and started lifting up rocks and boulders as if they were nothing, taking everyone by surprise. If anything, though, this just got Eijiro more pumped. Huh. Alright then, let's go. One by one, everyone started pitching in, with Mina and Burns melting some of the rocks away with their respective quirks while Prime, Bulkhead, and Springer did a lot of the heavy lifting. Kyoka used her jacks to crack some of the more embedded stones, allowing Jazz, Bumblebee and RC to blast them away with ease. However, as he and Izuku were working away on their end, Eijiro stopped when he heard a metallic clink. Huh. He pulled his hand back, and was met with something gold, black and silver, and most importantly, metallic. Haha. Guys, we've hit it. The Autobots and other humans stopped abruptly to gather around the boys, while Izuku worked on removing more debris from around the metal piece. We found the relic. Excellent work, boys. Optimus praised as he zoomed in on what they found. As more and more of the relic was revealed, however, the Prime's optics widened. Even from just the very end piece of this relic, he recognized it without question. Unbelievable. What is it, Prime? Kyoka asked. What did we dig up? Optimus reached out and touched the metal, feeling its finely forged surface beneath his fingertips. Kyoka, this is none other than the Skyboom shield. There was a momentary pause before Mina admired the relic. Ooh, cool name, a bit much for just a shield, but hey, it's still awesome. Oh, this is no ordinary shield, Mina. RC stated. The Skyboom shield is said to be made of every single fiber of the finest metals that Cybertron has to offer, all put into one nigh indestructible package. She reached out and ran her hand over the shield herself. It's said that nothing short of a Class 10 explosion can crack the surface of this weapon, forged by the great Solus Prime herself. Impressive. Burns acknowledged. So, let's keep digging and get it out of here, pronto. But Springer wagged his finger down to the special agent. Hey, who said we had to keep digging? Now that we know what we've got, we can get this relic out without any hassle. He reached down to his hip and pulled off his cylindrical grenade, tossing it in his hand with aplomb. It's like I always say, one grenade, one shot. All we gotta do is get clear and I'll handle the rest. Everyone eyed each other warily, unsure of the wrecker's plan. Are ya sure, Springer? RC asked. I mean, if we're not careful, who knows what could happen with all this debris. Not to mention you could send the shield sky high. Not if I place it correctly. Springer said with complete self-assuredness, even giving a wink to RC. Trust me, this ain't my first rodeo. I may be a wrecker, but I'm also a trained demo expert. If we blow a hole in this rock and get the skyboom shield out, we'll be back at base before the cons even know we're here. He looked to the Prime for approval. So, what'd you say, Commander? Wanna give it a shot? Optimus thought it over for a moment, taking in all of the variables. If they transformed into vehicle mode and had the humans say inside them, there was less of a chance of them being hurt. And of course, the fact that Springer had suggested getting as far away as possible beforehand had shown that he did know what he was talking about. Blowing the shield out of the ground would expedite the process. Very well, Springer, we'll try it your way. He craned his head down to the humans by his feet. And you all should stay inside of your respective guardian when the blast goes off, understood? Of course, Optimus. Izuku acknowledged. We'll be sure to play it safe. Very good. Autobots, retreat to a safe distance. Prime cut himself off when a familiar sound came to his audio receptors, and he now felt very much on edge because of it. He recognized the sound of a ground bridge opening up anywhere, and sure enough, when he lifted his head skyward, he saw the vortex spiraling above them. Oh no. Eijiro and the other humans all gathered up, their eyes widened at the sight. That's not one of ours, is it? He said as a sense of dread took hold. Shio. As if to answer his question, a certain white, red and blue jet came shooting down from the ground bridge, followed immediately by about 7 jet black aircraft that everyone recognized immediately. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. All at once, the black vehicles all transformed into Viacons, and at the top of the ridge above them, Starscream transformed and landed with a THOOM. Aha! So this is where you all are. Starscream. Bulkhead bellowed, bringing out his mace. Everyone started to unsheath their own weapons as well, with Jazz aiming his subsonic repeater up at the Seeker. Should've known y'all would be on top of all this. Can't ya just leave us alone for once? Mina snapped. Are you even listening to yourself, human child? Starscream admonished. It's not in a Decepticon's nature to let anything alone, especially regarding Autobots. He scanned his sights across the group, raising an inquisitive metal brow. Now, what exactly is the reason for you being here? Seems like a long way from home if you ask me. Oh, it was then that he caught sight of the skyboom shield sticking out of the rock face, piquing his interest instantly. Ooh, now what do we have here? Another relic from Cybertron. How exciting. Prime pointed his ion blaster at the Air Commander with a warning glare. Starscream, you would do well to leave now, or else we will be required to use force if necessary. Starscream gasped mockingly before trembling in place. Oh no. Optimus Prime has given us quite the stern warning. Whatever shall we do? Just as quick as he started, Starscream flipped the switch and went back into serious mode. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll be taking that relic, whatever it is, and we will do so by force, by any means necessary. PSH, please. Kyoka rolled her eyes. You and a handful of Viacons. The Autobots have beaten you against these kinds of odds before, so what makes you think you'll succeed this time? A smug grin overtook Starscream's features as he raised his hand. Because, puny Earth female, I have brought something new to the table, family. Snap. BOOOOM. The instant Starscream snapped his fingers, an absolutely massive sonic boom came blasting through the area, reverberating through the ground, the air, and through everyone, humans and bots included. But no one took the brunt of it more than Kyoka. AAAAAAAAUUUUUGHH. The perplet wailed in agony as she was brought to her knees, her hands desperately covering her ears and earphone jacks. Sudden and loud noises were something that she always had trouble handling, and this was no exception. Gia. Too loud. Too loud. Kyoka. Izuku rushed over and held onto her, despite the pain that had reached his own ears. At that moment, a pair of shadows went zooming over their heads, accompanied by the sounds of even more jets flying overhead. The group snapped their heads up and were greeted by the sight of a blue MiG-29 Fulcrum and a black and purple Shenyang J-11 passing by overhead, before both jets circled back around and transformed. And what the humans saw next made them to a double take. Wait, what? There's 3 Starscreams now! Mina exclaimed. True to form, the 2 new jets resembled Starscream almost identically, the only difference being in their faces and choice of alt mode. Plus, their weapons were also different, with the blue one carrying a rifle of some sort while the black and purple Seeker carried a set of shotguns. As if one wasn't bad enough. The black and purple one raised his guns at the group. Oh, trust me, there's only one Starscream, thankfully. The blue one cocked his weapon and lowered a red visor over his eyes. But trust me, you're gonna wish we were just more Starscreams by the time we're done with you. The Autobots continued to stare in utter disbelief, leading Izuku to ask, Optimus, who are they? With his optics still as wide as can be, Optimus couldn't help the bewilderment as he said their names. Skywarp, Thundercracker. Starscream chuckled as he raised his hands, presenting his brothers to the group. HM, how do you like us now, Autobots? Chapter 18, Seeker Assault. At first, when Springer had vouched for Izuku and his friends to go on this new retrieval mission, the One for All inheritor had been ecstatic at the prospect. A chance to contribute to the team's relic hunt while also being able to flex his new quirk abilities. He had to stop himself from saying, hell yeah, to that, because deep down, it made him feel super pumped. Of course, he had always been careful about his language, but since meeting Kyoka, he had found himself more and more lenient on cussing. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing was still up in the air, but right now wasn't the time to get sidetracked with thoughts like that. Because, at the moment, he and the others found themselves surrounded by about 10 Decepticons, 2 of which were particularly intimidating to the humans thanks to their sudden arrival. Skywarp and Thundercracker, 2 new faces, but at the same time not so new since they heavily resembled Starscream. Please tell me I'm not in some sort of nightmare. Kyoka grumbled, her ears still ringing from the sonic boom. Why the hell are there 3 Starscreams in front of us? Skywarp snarled at that before his own battle mask lowered down in front of his face. It sort of resembled a skull, oddly enough, only without any teeth and with glowing purple optics. He aimed his shotguns toward Kyoka as his voice sounded much creepier beneath his mask. Say that again and your ears won't be the only thing that'll be hurting, girl. Brother, please, she's not worth it. Thundercracker beseeched, though his tone was apathetic beneath his own simple battle mask and red visor. We've got bigger things to concern ourselves with at the moment, if you hadn't noticed. Optimus, just what is going on here? Agent Burns asked, eyeing the Autobot leader. Who are these bots and why do they look so much like stars? He cut himself off when he heard another grumble from Skywarp. I mean, why do all 3 of those guys look alike? Prime didn't take his optics off of the 3 as he explained, Starscream, Skywarp and Thundercracker are the main trio of a group of Decepticons called the Seekers. They are Megatron's main aerial strike squad, with Starscream acting as their chief commander while Skywarp and Thundercracker are 2 of their main squadron leaders. The Seeker Armada is responsible for some of the worst attacks on Cybertronian cities. Bulkhead added, his glare hardening at the trio. They even aided in the destruction of the Crystal City Ian's back. Skywarp threw his head back and laughed. Now there's a memory. He smirked insidiously. The big guy did most of the work, but I still remember talking down that main tower. Hey, that felt good to do. Well, good for you. Thundercracker bemoaned, lifting his leg up to scratch at the bottom of his foot. I'm still picking out shards from my afterburners, so forgive me if the memory isn't as pleasant for me. Oh, come, brothers. Starscream implored as he placed his arms over his fellow Seeker's shoulders, earning him a pair of glares. We're all in this together, so there's no point in quarreling with one another. Besides, he pointed down toward the Skyboom shield, still only partly exposed. Our main goal is that relic. RC reached behind her back and pulled out her twin swords, the energy blades lighting up in a bright orange color. We're not gonna let you get it, Starscream. Not by a long shot. Jazz reinforced, his own weapon powering up. Autobots, at the ready. Bulkhead snapped his head down toward the humans. Agent Burns, take the kids and get as far away as you can. We'll handle the Seekers and get you a ground bridge back. Right, got it. Burns nodded before ushering the 4 students to follow him. Come on people, let's move, move, move. The Autobots formed a wall in front of the humans as they all sprinted off, though that didn't mean that Starscream failed to notice them. Oh, how valiant. They're throwing themselves in our line of fire so the humans can get away. He waved his hand slightly to 3 of the Viacons. Go, cut them off and destroy them, if you would. No. Optimus charged his ion blaster and started shooting as soon as the Viacons transformed and went airborne. ZWOM, but just as quickly, he felt himself getting wrenched away from his target and suddenly shoved down to the ground, with Skywarp looming over him. Gah! Skywarp! Prime shot up to his feet and charged for the black and purple Seeker, only for him to warp away again while Bulkhead went to do the same. Clang! Ow! Bulkhead doubled back in a slight daze, though was aware enough to realize what had happened. Oh Optimus, are you? I'm fine, Prime asserted, only for his audio receptors to once again be greeted with Skywarp's teleporting noise. Clang! Ack! And just like that, Prime was sent stumbling forward into Bulkhead again, this time sending both of them to the ground. Skywarp cackled in delight at his handiwork. Ah ha ha, ya might wanna rethink that, Prime. Pew 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 pew. Ah, whoa. ZWOM. Skywarp just barely dodged the incoming fire from Jazz and Bumblebee, teleporting to a different location, only to be greeted by Springer. Bam. Oof. With a good punch to the face, Springer sent the Seeker falling right onto his rear, only for him to transform and blast back off to a safe distance. The Wrecker didn't take too kindly to that. Hey, get back here, coward, ack. But just then, a pair of Viacons came up from behind him and bashing him in his back, with each of them grabbing him by an arm. Grr, Sawback, Fangblade, I need some help. With a flex of his arms, Springer deployed his 2 mini-cons off and into battle, the discs flying right into the cons' faces upon launch. They doubled back around and transformed, the robotic wolf and Smilodon roaring in anticipation as they pounced on their prey. Prime and Bulkhead got back to their feet as they saw Skywarp fleeing toward the sky, the former narrowing his optics at the Seeker. Bulkhead, aim high. Sir. Bulkhead transformed one of his arms into a cannon, aimed it up at Skywarp, and all at once, he and Prime started blasting. Ha! Whoa! That all you got, Autobots? Skywarp barked. Well, have some of these. A pair of hidden compartments opened up from under his wings and a barrage of missiles came flying out, with at least 16 of them all headed toward the duo. The 2 Autobots were quick to move, but the impact and explosion of the missiles still sent both of them back by quite a few feet. Optimus quickly tucked and rolled to get back into the action, but Bulkhead wasn't so fortunate. Thwom! The large Autobot careened right into the side of the rock face, almost directly next to his best friend who was fighting off a Viacon. Bulkhead! Springer called out, shoving the Viacon away so that Sawback and Fangblade could take it from there. Hold on, whoa. ZWOM, where do ya think you're going? Ah ha ha. Skywarp grabbed Springer by the arm, swung him around, and then delivered a big thrust kick to his jaw, making him fly through the air and into Bulkhead. Skywarp laughed some more as the 2 wreckers came tumbling down onto one another. Ha ha ha. Ah, I do so love my work. Across the battlefield, it was no less hectic. Bumblebee, Jazz and RC found themselves preoccupied by about 3 Viacons, though they seemed to be faring somewhat better at least. Bumblebee was giving his opponent a hard time by being hard to catch, zipping around the Viacon and shocking it at random intervals. Jazz, meanwhile, was performing some freestyle combat maneuvers that resembled breakdancing, which the Viacon had no idea how to counter. Thusly, the incoming barrage of swinging kicks went unexpected and the con was sent right to the rocky terrain. RC, meanwhile, was using her swords to block her opponent's shots as she ran straight up to him, leaping lightly from rock to take him off guard. 1 second, she was in one place, the next, she was in another, and it was all a matter of time before, shink. RC rushed past the Viacon, swiping her swords as she did. Only a few seconds later, the con split off at the waist and fell to the ground, deactivated. HMPH, they've really gotta get better help. Pow po pow po. RC gasped and did a backflip away from the incoming fire, and was met with the sight of Thundercracker as its source. I couldn't agree more. Viacons can be so useless sometimes. He cocked his pulse rifle, glaring at RC from behind his visor. You know the old saying, never send a foot soldier to do a seeker's job. Thundercracker, and here I thought you were the more polite one. Sorry, miss, can't let my emotions get in the way of what needs to be done. Thundercracker aimed his rifle at RC, locking her in his sights. We've got a relic to retrieve and I'd rather not disappoint my brother after he went to such lengths to get us here. And quite frankly, I've just had enough of failure at the moment. RC narrowed her optics at him, keeping her guard up. Is this really how you want things to go down? Think about what you're doing and ask yourself, is this all worth it? There was a quiet pause for a second, and RC really wished he didn't have that face mask and visor up so she could read his expression. Unfortunately, she didn't get that luxury as he opened fire just a second later. Gia, with an expertly timed leap, she jumped and did a mid-air flip, landing on her feet before sprinting toward Thundercracker while dodging the blasts. Guess that's a yes. The femme kept sprinting and swiping her swords, reflecting any blasts that she couldn't avoid as she closed in on Thundercracker. Before long, she managed to get up close and personal with the Seeker and went to bring her sword down, only for a different blade to come in at the last second and stop her. Her optics widened and her head snapped up, to see Starscream with his signature smirk. Dear brother, is this femme giving you trouble? Beneath his visor, Thundercracker's face hardened. Starscream, I had her. Oh, I know. Starscream rolled his eyes and pressed his sword further onto RC's, making her back up away from Thundercracker. I simply thought you could use a hand. After all, we've got company. Pew 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 pew. Thundercracker snapped his head around to see Jazz and Bumblebee come running their way, blasting at him and his brother. Thundercracker. Starscream. Jazz bellowed. Back off and scram before things get ugly. Really now? Thundercracker aimed his pulse rifle at the duo and shot off 3 pulse grenades, the projectiles flying between the two and creating a massive explosion behind them when they hit the ground. Jazz and Bumblebee were sent flying, with the former being caught by Thundercracker himself. You must be real confident then, Autobot. Graw. With a mighty throw, Thundercracker tossed Jazz away, but the first lieutenant was way ahead of him. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Jazz transformed in midair and peeled out the second he hit dirt, circling back around toward the surprised Seeker. Not today. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Clang. Gah. Thundercracker's head snapped back after that swift uppercut from Jazz, making him fall over the edge of another ridge. Bam! HNG. Jazz landed with a double stomp on the Seeker's back, and as quick as a whip, he drove his knee into Thundercracker's spine and wrapped his arm around his neck. With all his might, he wrenched back, and the blue Decepticon wailed in pain. Yeah, how'd you like that, sucka? Wanna mess with us now, huh? Thundercracker grit his metal teeth and focused every ounce of energy he had on his thrusters, and then, boom. A massive burst of energy came out of the Seeker's feet and both him and Jazz were sent blasting across the ground before shooting straight up into the air. Jazz was so stunned that his grip loosened, and with Thundercracker's spine straight again, he wrestled back control and threw Jazz off of him and straight into the rock face. A pair of mini guns came out from under his wings and he shouted, "Let's see how you like it." Rat-a-tat-a-tat. Ah. Jazz howled in pain as he was peppered with bullets, doing everything he could to pull himself free from his imprisonment. Still, though, he didn't relent. That all ya got, Con? Come on, bring it. Just as he closed in, Thundercracker transformed, pulled out his pulse rifle and reached up to a button on the side of his helm. If you insist. Tactical visor, activated. The moment he pressed that button, a red, holographic projection popped up in front of his visor, acting as a homing device of sorts, complete with a targeting reticle. The reticle focused in on Jazz and he aimed his rifle, confident that he wouldn't miss. Goodbye, Autobot, pow. Once more, 3 pulse grenades were sent flying, and they were focused in right onto Jazz. This is gonna hurt, a lot. Jazz closed his optics and waited for the inevitable, but then he felt something clamp down on both of his feet and pull hard. Yow! On the one hand, it hurt, but on the other, he was pulled out of the wall at the very last possible second. Boom! The rock face exploded and debris was sent flying everywhere, much to both of their astonishment. What? Thundercracker's battle mask retracted, his jaw slack and optics wide. How did I miss? But it wasn't long until he saw the reason why. Jazz had been pulled out by a pair of mini-cons. Oh, you've gotta be fragging me. Jazz sat up and chuckled in relief, smiling to Sawback and Fangblade. Ha, thanks you too. I was fixin' to be blown up, and not in the good way. Rough. Meow. Thundercracker came back down with a mighty stomp, his glare fixated on the lieutenant and two mini-cons with ire. Okay, now I'm really starting to get annoyed. Jazz, Sawback and Fangblade were on their guard as Thundercracker aimed his rifle at them once again. All we did was come here to accomplish a single mission, and I swear, we won't stop until we get. However, the Seeker trailed off as he spotted something in his gun sights, making him raise his head up in surprise. That. Jazz and the mini-cons spun around and were stunned by what they saw. As it turned out, the pulse grenades had blown up the exact spot where their target of interest had been, and now the Skyboom shield was entirely exposed for everyone to see. Scrap. Gia. RC hollered in pain as she was struck by Starscream, the Seeker swiping his sword across her chest and creating an open wound in the process. The femme was sent falling after the blow, clutching her breastplate as energon leaked from it in her mouth. Since he had entered the fight, RC managed to fend off Starscream for a good while, but not even she was a match for his overwhelming strength. She grit her teeth and glared at him as he approached, almost like how a predator would corner its prey. I'm not done. RC struggled to her feet, bringing out her pistol to take aim at him. Ah. Oh, how adorable. Starscream chortled, closing his optics briefly. I commend your fighting spirit, RC, but I'm afraid that, pew. Ow. Unfortunately for Starscream, taking his sights off his opponent was a big mistake. RC shot straight for his head, but the second he heard the shot, Starscream jolted to the right. The blast still managed to hit, though only just barely grazing its target. With a glare that could possibly rival even Megatron's, RC snapped at Starscream, "You thought I was kidding. Never underestimate me, Starscream." Rag. She pulled out her sword again and started running to her adversary again, who had just collected himself. And he was not happy. How dare you? Starscream whipped up his arm and shot a null ray blast out at RC, which made its mark in her midsection without fail. Og. RC screamed in pain as she fell to her knees, the null ray's effect starting to take hold. Combine that with her loss of energon, and the intelligence officer could hardly move a mechanical muscle. Starscream stomped over to RC, looming over her with his null ray still pointed at her. Well played, RC, but not well enough. I have half a mind to fry your processor right here. RC's optics widened at the sight of his null ray powering up, getting ready for another blast. In fact, I think I will. Zap. AAAAAAAACK. RC gasped and Starscream was brought to his own knees, a stream of lightning having struck him in his back. She whipped her head around, and saw Bumblebee standing a few feet away. He was glowering at Starscream with righteous fury, which he only reinforced through his radio. ZRKT, get away from her, you bitch. Bumblebee. RC raised her hand, pleading him not to come closer. Don't do it, you're no match for Starscream, get out of here. ZRKT, wait, what? Bumblebee's determination faltered at her request, his gaze full of concern. ZRKT, but I can't just, ZRKT, leave you here. ZRKT, you need help. I know, and thank you for helping me. RC smiled to him imploringly, steadily getting to her feet as Starscream remained stunned on the ground. But we all have to remember our roles here. You're not built for this sort of combat, remember. She saw Bumblebee's expression fall at the reminder, but she put a supportive hand on his shoulder, her smile still there. But if we all regroup with the others, we'll have a better chance at fending off the Seekers. So, let's, Og. Without warning, Starscream shot back up and grabbed RC by the leg, holding her upside down as he towered over a terrified Bumblebee. He snarled down at the scout as he taunted him. Oh, I'm sorry, was I interrupting something important? Raw. Bam. Bumblebee could only watch on as Starscream slammed RC into the boulder behind him, putting several nasty dents into her. A chill ran down his metal spine as Starscream quickly reached down and grabbed him by the neck, the Autobot belting out panicked buzzes as the Seeker brought him eye to eye with him. And as for you, Bug. RC forced her optics back open, but she quickly wished she hadn't. She bore witness to Starscream tossing Bumblebee up into the air and then delivering a huge thrust kick as he came falling back down. If that weren't enough, Starscream activated his thrusters and flew into the flying Autobot, grabbed him by the throat again, and tossed him straight into the rock face as the coup de grace of his string of attacks. Bumblebee. RC shrieked as she watched Bumblebee's optics dim, the scout knocked out cold. Starscream tossed Bumblebee to the side with a scoff. HMPH, hardly a challenge. Well, I suppose there's nothing more left to do than to. Gra-ah. Wait. Wah. Shank. Ah. A sharp pain went through Starscream's shoulders, with RC having jumped up on his back and stabbed her blades into them. Her face was twisted in anger, her grip unrelenting as she refused to let go. You're going to pay for that. Hey. That's usually my line. Seeing no better option, Starscream activated his thrusters and shot up into the sky again, taking RC with him. The duo climbed at high speeds while Starscream tried to reach up to her, though thanks to his own wings, that was easier said than done. Ack. Hold still you little, clang. Ow. RC had kicked him in the head. Hard. How does it feel, Starscream? Not so fun when someone kicks you, is it? You crazy glitch. You asked for this. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Starscream transformed into his vehicle mode and went flying up high into the air, the swords having been forced out of him in the conversion process. RC gasped and hung on for dear life as the Seeker commander flew higher and higher into the air, until they were at least 100 meters off the ground. Once there, Starscream transformed again, though this time, he was now holding RC by her arm, smirking once again. Not so fun anymore, now is it? Goodbye, RC. With no remorse whatsoever, Starscream flung RC once again, the intelligence officer sent screaming down toward the earth below. Given her height, the rate she was falling, and how hard her impact would be, RC screwed her optics shut and prepared for whatever would happen. I'm sorry, Bumblebee. Her voice cracked in sadness. But then. Sproing. By the time that sound reached her, RC already gasped as she felt someone catch her from out of the air, her momentum suddenly shifting direction. She and her savior landed with a hard thud, and thankfully, both were safe and sound. RC craned her head around, and just as she thought, there was Springer, the wrecker wearing a rather heroic smirk. Hey, well, that's one way to get someone's attention. He gave her a friendly smile and raised a metal brow at her. You okay, RC? Well, other than all of your other injuries, I mean. In all honesty, RC was still a bit in shock by everything. She truly thought she was going to meet her doom, but right in the nick of time, Springer had literally jumped right in to save her. Plus, she had to admit, his dashing quip did help lighten the mood, as jarring as it was. But at the same time, RC was truly grateful for his act and she smiled back at him. Why yes, I am. Thank you, Springer. Think nothing of it. Springer said proudly with a wink. All in a day's work for a wrecker. Though I would highly advise not doing something like that again. We can't all be triple changers, ya know. RC couldn't help but laugh at the joke. Ha. Yeah, you've got a point. Little did either of them know, however, that a certain scout was watching from the sidelines. Bumblebee had just regained consciousness, and the moment he had seen Springer save RC, he was both relieved and stunned to his core. It didn't help that she was smiling and laughing while he winked at her, and it made his spark sink all the more. A sad buzz escaped his throat, and that's what got RC to notice him. Bumblebee. RC quickly hopped out of Springer's arms and rushed over to her friend, surprising Bumblebee quite a bit. Hey, are you okay? You had me so scared. That reignited a glimmer of hope in B's spark as he slowly reached his hand out to her, which she gladly took. ZRKT, I hurt, ZRTK, all over. RC winced as she picked Bumblebee up, only realizing now just how damaged she was as well. Yeah, So am I. We need to get out of. Wham! And just like that, Starscream was back again, slamming down next to him with both of his null rays aimed at them. That's it. I have had enough of you, clang. Frag. Just as suddenly, the Air Commander was kicked away by Springer, the Wrecker producing his own blades to get ready to fight. Hey, Screamer. Remember me. Ya know, the bot who even your poor excuses for guards couldn't handle. He snapped his head back to RC and Bumblebee, giving them a nod. You guys get clear. Find the humans and make sure they got away safely, we'll handle the rest here. He gave one last wink to RC. And best of luck. Right, thanks, Springer. RC returned as she and Bumblebee turned to hobble away. Come on B, we need to find everyone and get back to base. Begrudgingly, Bumblebee agreed, though he couldn't help but give a narrow-eyed side glance back to Springer as he engaged in combat with Starscream. Was Springer attempting to flirt with RC? Or was that his mind tricking him? Focus B, he thought to himself. Safe getaway first, personal stuff later. Little did any of the Autobots know, however, that before the Decepticons' ground bridge closed, an observation probe had come through after them and was still hanging around. The device had multiple sets of cameras on the action, focusing between Starscream, Skywarp and Thundercracker's respective battles. And needless to say, the femmes watching it all go down back at base were thoroughly entertained. BAHAHA. Oh, Primus, did you see how Warp just made Prime and the big guy look like clumsy idiotas? Nitra belted out as she slapped her knee. Man, now that was rich. And hey, TC ain't doing so bad either. He's got Jazz on the ropes. Hey, yeah, but how about Starscream? Swift pointed out, watching as the Seeker Commander practically went all out against RC and Bumblebee. I don't think I've ever seen him this serious since we came to this planet. She trailed off the moment she saw Shadow Striker focused intently on that particular fight, her stare unwavering. See something you like, Shadow? A sneer came to her face at that. Non, the exact opposite, really. She balled her fists and pointed to the pink and yellow Autobots. Those two, I remember them quite vividly. They will be number one on my list of Autobots to kill, assuming Starscream lets them live. Ooh, got a grudge against RC and B, EH. Swift asked. Remind me to ask about that later. She set her sights back to the monitors, watching as Starscream pummeled Bumblebee into unconsciousness. Still, he's kicking Major aft out there. Nitra gave her a shrug. Hey, maybe all he needed was a confidence boost. And now that he's got his brothers by his side, I've got a feeling that's what he's got now. HMPH, well that's surprising. A certain raspy voice said as it came into the room. Swift and Nitra turned their heads and saw Barricade come strolling in, followed closely behind by Flatline and Blastwave. The Decepticon officer had his optics set on the three screens with interest. Given all they've done since you got here as banter and argue, you'd think they wouldn't be on the same page. He moved his optics down toward Nitra and gave her a smirk. By the way, how's it going, Cadet? The hacker could only roll her optics at her former rank, though she still got up from her seat to address her former commanding officer. HMPH, pretty well, Sergeant, if you still go by that rank, hee. Barricade scoffed and his own optics rolled as well. Please, the Decepticons hold far more respect for me than that idiot Prowl ever did. He placed his hands on his hips with pride. The moment I joined up, Megatron promoted me straight to lieutenant, no questions asked. So I've heard. Nitra saluted. Well then, Lieutenant, what brings you here? I wanted to speak with you. Barricade offered as Flatline and Blastwave headed over to the monitors. We haven't had a chance to talk since you got here, and it's been a pretty long time. Figured my favorite student would wanna brag about her accomplishments. HM, what can I say, hombre? Nitra brought up her personal holo interface and began typing into it, bringing up some files about her and her team's victories over the past 300 stellar cycles. We've been pretty busy since we left Cybertron, I can tell you that. All honesty, though, didn't think we'd end up here of all places. The Decepticon officer folded his arms over his chest. PSH, how do you think we feel about it? By the way, I think you'd be interested to hear this. He saw Nitra give him his undivided attention, her gaze curious. You ready for this? Strongarm is on Earth. Almost instantly, Nitra's lips parted in shock and her interface vanished. She took a moment for that to sink in before her face lit up into a smile. Ha ha ha. Regs. She's on this planet. No way. Yes way. Barricade smirked. And lemme tell ya, she's still not happy about what went down all those years back with or should I say, our betrayal. Nitra grinned right back at him. It had been an ingenious plan, really. As a cadet, she was tired of following all of the rules and regulations, ruling it as a boring existence. After Barricade had informed her of what he intended, though, she was convinced that siding with the Decepticons had a lot more freedom than whatever those Autobot taskmasters in the police force had offered. So, she hacked into the headquarters, security protocols, deactivated everything, and let the cons do the rest that day. She even faked her own death in the process, allowing her to stay hidden behind the scenes with no bot the wiser. Hey, yeah, that was a good day. Barricade raised a metal brow at her. But, nada, it's just, I kinda miss Regs, you know. As much as she was a stickler for the rules, she was still my best friend. Well, if that's the case, then that reunion will be pretty bittersweet when that happens. Barricade went to move past her, but paused to give her one last piece of advice. Remember, kid, some things are best left in the past. After all, I doubt that you'd be able to convince the cadet that coming over to our side would be a good thing. Nitra craned her head down and sighed. Yeah, I know. Barricade continued toward the monitors. And remember, don't let your own personal feelings on the matter get in the way either. We can't risk failure if we aren't willing to let go of times gone by. See, Claro. Nitra acknowledged as she followed him, grouping up with the rest of the Decepticons. Back on the screens, the fights were still going on, with Starscream actually having tossed RC down to the earth below from high in the air. My word, Flatline muttered. Herr Commander is certainly much more intense than he has been these past several days here on Earth. Is good day to be Starscream, it seems. Blastwave concluded, his grin growing wildly. And now, it is time for puny pink femme to go splat. Ahahaha, but before she even made impact, Springer jumped right up and caught the falling RC, leaving the Decepticons all disappointed. Bah, stupid triple changer is back. Z-Wrecker Zat escaped Z-ship. Flatline affirmed. Oh, I doubt Z's will go down Velvet Starscream. Probably not, but, wait, over there. Swift pointed up to the monitor displaying Thundercracker's fight with Jazz. The Blue Seeker had just fired off several more pulse grenades from his rifle at the Autobot's first lieutenant, but Springer's mini-cons had gotten him out of his predicament at the last second. This resulted in the rockface exploding, and the Skyboom shield being unearthed completely. The room was silent for a moment before Nitra commented, gotta admit, didn't see that coming. Barricade grinned eagerly. Hey, well, at least she shield's free now, so now grabbing it will be a piece of oil cake. If Z-Seekers can capitalize. Shadow Striker reminded. Let us see how Z's plays out. Her optics trailed back over to the other camera, and off in the distance, she could see something interesting begin to unfold. The three Viacons had caught up with the humans, and considering all that she had heard about these organic creatures, now Z's could be interesting. Back down south, while the huge fight between Autobots and Decepticons was happening behind them, the students were being led away by Agent Burns. He kept glancing behind him to make sure they were all keeping up, but in his head, he was trying to come to grips with all of this. How the hell did this operation go belly up this fast? He thought to himself. I get that the cons can track Autobot signals, but you'd think they'd at least take their time mobilizing, right? Agent Burns. The Sector 7 soldier snapped his head back toward Izuku, who was both concerned and confused at the same time. Hate to point this out, but where exactly are we running? Yeah, there's not much out here in the way of cover. Eijiro agreed. We're pretty much sitting ducks. Trust me, boys, I know. Burns asserted. But our main priority is getting as far away from the action as possible right now. Kyoka shot him an irritated look. And what? Hope to God that Prime or someone else is just able to get word back to base so they can bridge us back. She snapped. I doubt that'll be easy since they're in the middle of a fight. Burns' expression hardened and he stopped in his tracks, whipping around to Kyoka as the teens stopped. Miss Jiro, I'm doing my best to keep you all safe. This might not be the best plan, but it's the only one we have at the moment. The perplet didn't relent as she got right up in the agent's face. And I'm telling you that it sucks. And you wanna know why? She raised her arm up to the sky and said, because they've been on our tail the whole time. Everyone craned their heads up, and saw 3 Viacons come blasting in from the direction they were running from, the trio transforming and landing in a circle around them. See, told ya running was useless. And oh, how right you were. One of the Viacons aimed his arm blaster at the humans with a dangerous tone in his voice. And it's time that all of you paid the price. You two especially. Another con spat, aiming his own blaster at Mina and Ajiro, who flinched in shock. Both of you were responsible for the deactivation of one of our comrades. Mina swallowed hard, a nervous laugh escaping her throat. Hee, why yeah, that was a mistake on our part. We thought you were drones at the time and… Oh, of course, the Viacon said with a sarcastic wave. Because that's what everyone thinks. No need to worry about killing those Decepticons, they're not sentient in the least. Well, guess what? We are. And we're gonna make sure that's driven into your heads as we end your pitiful existence. You too, and that electric whelp. The last Viacon activated a pair of blades in his arms, ready to eviscerate the group of humans. We'll make sure that he gets what's coming to him as well. But for now, it's time for you all to meet your end. Shit, now what do we do? Ajiro asked, hoping for an answer quick. Fortunately, that answer came in the form of Izuku suddenly powering up full cowling, his eyes flashing green briefly as he took a combat stance. We have no choice, we have to fight off these Viacons. But Burns was far from happy with that answer. What? No, kid, don't do it. He reached out and grasped Izuku by the shoulder. We agreed that quirk usage should only be used as a last resort and… What does this situation seem like to you, Buzz Cut? Kyoka suddenly cut in, pushing his hand off Izuku's shoulder. Because this seems like a pretty big, last resort, scenario to me. She set her sights on Izuku, her frown turning up into a smile instantly. I'm with you, celery stick. Let's kick these guys' ass, without killing them, of course. I'm down with that. Ajiro raised his arms and hardened them up, with a bit of his face hardening as well. Let's show these guys that ya don't mess with UA. Students. Mina clapped her hands together in anticipation. Oh yeah, fight time. Let's pair off and have some fun. Seeing how the students weren't ready to back down in the least, Burns sighed in defeat. He removed his insulated gloves and exposed his magma hands, the intense heat already permeating throughout the area. Alright, let's do this. But remember, be careful. Like we're gonna let you beat us. One Viacon balked at the notion. We've learned how brutal your powers can be after replaying that senseless massacre of yours over 8,000 times. The other Viacons aimed their weapons, ready to fire. Yeah, we're onto all you tricks, fleshies. Not all of them. Izuku bent himself at the knees and eyed his best friend. Kyoka, I know this is gonna sound weird but, a light shade of pink came to his cheeks at what he said next. Hop on. Kyoka's cheeks flushed at this as well, her jacks jittering nervously. Wait, what? I figured that if we were on the move together, we'd be able to take out this Viacon quicker. Izuku stammered as he explained his plan. I mean, if you don't want to or feel uncomfortable with it, I understand, oof. Then, to his surprise, Kyoka actually jumped onto his back, wrapping her arms securely around his neck as her jacks extended out. You are completely insane, but I love the idea. She smirked down to him, making his own face light up. Let's do it. Izuku's gaze became determined once more as he set his sights onto the Viacon, who opened fire that very second. Whoa. With a pump of his legs, Izuku was on the move, leaping up to avoid the blast. He came back down, landing on his feet before breaking out into a sprint to dash away from the incoming barrage of energy blasts from the Viacon. Holy crap, dude, Kyoka shouted, beginning to feel a slight tingle and adrenaline rush just from being on Izuku's back. She moved her head around to see the blasts coming up short, hitting the ground instead of them. What the heck have you been doing? Guess this means all that training paid off. Izuku shrugged. So, any ideas? Kyoka nodded against his neck. Yeah, I do. Remember how I brought down the last Viacon? Yeah, but they said they at least learned that move. Well, I think I've got a way we can do it again, in a way they won't see coming. Kyoka leaned down and whispered her plan into Izuku's ear. And as much as he wanted to listen to her soothing voice, he focused on her plan and he gave her a nod. With that, he made a hard left turn and started running toward the Viacon, who was right on top of them. Oh no, ya don't. I'm not fallen for, shoom. That. The Viacon was left baffled as Izuku and Kyoka disappeared, the duo there 1 second and then gone the next. He was pretty sure he didn't blink either, so where could they have? Chink. Ah. The Viacon felt his knees give out from underneath him and he was brought down, with heavy reverberations coursing through his legs unrelentingly. He snapped his head down, and saw Izuku and Kyoka behind him, the latter's jacks plugged into the back of his knees. But, how? Kyoka scoffed at the Viacon. PSH, it's called misdirection, dumbass. Izuku and Iida are both pretty fast, but the big difference. Izuku here can turn right on a dime. Oh. And another thing, she unplugged her jacks and, as quick as a whip, she shot them right up to the Viacon's chest, making him cry out once again. Your turn, broccoli boy. Right. Izuku leapt up and pulled one of his arms forward, raising his hand while putting his thumb and forefinger together. Delaware, SMAAAASH. He flicked his finger forward, sending out a concussive blast of wind to the Viacon. Much to the foot soldier's astonishment, he was actually sent flying back from the blow, tumbling through the air as he soared upward. Ah. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. He tried to transform into his alt mode, but then he was met with Izuku and Kyoka again in the air. The perplet whipped her jacks and plugged them into him again, but unlike last time, there was no pain. No, instead, she used them to yank both her and her partner forward, the latter charging up a 5% powered punch. Detroit, SMAAAASH. Pang. Izuku punched the Viacon's hood, sending it straight back down to earth and making it crash headlong into the solid ground. The Viacon transformed back into robot mode, but didn't last a second before it fell into unconsciousness. Izuku and Kyoka landed and the former powered down, letting out a relieved breath. Ha, whoa, that was wild. Kyoka cheered as she kept herself clung to Izuku's neck in a sort of hug. That had to be the craziest rush of my life. Ha ha. Izuku couldn't help but blush. Never in his life had he ever experienced such intimate contact, but he had to keep himself level-headed for this. Hey, yeah, it was pretty crazy, I'll give you that. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something else going on. Hey, over there. The duo set their sights off into the distance and saw Eijiro and Mina fighting off their Viacon opponent, though they definitely weren't as coordinated as they were. Ishido, watch out. Whoa. Mina leapt back as she narrowly avoided a laser blast, landing in a tumble before rolling back to her feet. Kirishima, what was your plan again? My plan. You're the one who rushed in first, I thought you had one. Oh, right. I did, didn't I? Pew. Ah. Once again, Mina just managed to get out of the way of more laser blasts, though this time, an idea popped into her head. Just as she jumped away, she flung her hand back and splashed a powerful corrosive acid at the Viacon's weapon, melting it and making it short-circuit. And, as she suspected, the Khan had the appropriate reaction. Ah. Og. The foot solider tried in vain to shake the acid off, but when it didn't, he resorted to something drastic. Get it off me. Get it off me. Ker-chunk. In a surprising move, he tore off his own arm from the elbow down. Which, while not a pleasant feeling, was at least still better than feeling his arm getting melted. Ha, phew, TSSSS, ah. Mina cackled in glee as she watched the Viacon dance in panic, having sprayed more acid on his legs and feet. Ha. Oh, this is way too good, and then, yet another idea came to her, and she faced her red-headed friend excitedly. Ooh, wait, Kirishima, go stand under his foot, and then harden your whole body up. Eijiro was confused at first, but when he saw how high the Viacon was raising his legs, he picked up on the idea rather quickly. Oh, hey, I get ya. He dashed forward and stopped just a few feet from the Viacon, predicting where he would hop next. Then, all at once, he concentrated and made his whole body as hard as rock, including his very spiky faux hawk. He craned his head up just as the Khan's foot came down on him and he squeezed his eyes shut. This is either gonna hurt you, or me. Not sure which. Crash. Fortunately, Eijiro's stance had stayed firm and true, while the Viekan's foot and part of his shin were now effectively torn straight through. Yaoug. With a few chops of his hand, Eijiro dug his way out of the wires and torn metal before reaching up to the Khan's kneecap. From there, he dug his fingers into his opponent's armor, effectively making a climbing wall out of the Viekan before he reached his destination, the Khan's head. Hi there. Eijiro grinned. Please, the Viekan's damaged leg gave out from beneath him, forcing him to take a knee. Have mercy. Relax, I ain't gonna kill ya. Eijiro rolled his eyes, before pulling himself up and dropkicking the Viekan right in the face. The foot soldier fell backwards, the final blow knocking him unconscious as Kirishima landed on his feet. It's just your nap time, is all. Kirishima. The redhead deactivated his quirk, just in time to greet his pink friend. Hey, Ishido, we did, oof. Much to his surprise, however, Mina actually hugged him, her smile as bright as it ever was at their victory. Woohoo! Now that's how teamwork makes the dream work. She shouted with extreme excitement. We showed that Viekan who's boss. It took Eijiro a moment to respond, though, feeling his face starting to heat up. Of course, he and Mina had been good friends for a while now, especially since they had gone to the same junior high school together. But not once did he ever think Mina would actually give him a hug of all things. It seemed very intimate, and it started stirring something in him that made him flashback to something that Denki had said to him a couple weeks ago. Hey, I'm just saying, if you won't ask her out, somebody else likely will. But Eijiro quickly shook that thought away. Come on man, you can't go around thinking stuff like that. Mina's your friend. It's not like she likes you like that, right? Hey, you okay, Kirishima? Eijiro's flinched and he was brought back to reality, his eyes moving down to Mina who was still hugging him. Her head was tilted curiously, and for a brief moment, Eijiro couldn't help but find her cute. You kinda blanked out for a sec there. Oh, yeah I'm good, promise. Eijiro assured with a small smile. I was just, still coming to grasps with what we just did is all. He raised a fist up to her. And you're right, we made quite the team. Mina brightened up again and she eagerly fist bumped him back. Heck yeah, I'd say we're really on the road to being wreckers now. Hey, yeah, we sure are. Eijiro agreed. Talk about getting our wrecking legs. Guys. The duo perked up at the sound of Izuku's voice, the greenette rushing over with Kyoka piggybacking on him. The two felt their brows raise up at the sight as Izuku smiled at them. Hey, awesome job taking down that Khan, guys. The way you handled it was really good. Mina and Eijiro glanced toward one another as the pink girl grinned knowingly. Hee, yeah, you know it, and I'm guessing you guys took down yours, too. Kyoka jerked her thumb back toward where the aforementioned Khan was laid out. PSH, you even need to ask. We wiped the freaking floor with him. Great, so, why are you piggybacking Midoriya? Eijiro asked. Izuku and Kyoka's eyes nearly bugged out as they realized they were still doing that, and before long, the punk rocker had jumped off of her friend's back with a light blush. Though that wasn't to say that Izuku wasn't blushing as well, and the two were so embarrassed that they couldn't even face one another for a few seconds. But that didn't stop their sheepish smiles. Oh, no big reason. Kyoka twirled a jack around her finger anxiously. Just part of a battle maneuver that Izuku came up with. The quirk inheritor put his hand to the back of his head as his nerves started acting up, too. Hey, why yep, that's all. All the while, Mina and Eijiro eyed one another knowingly. Reet. Mina rolled her eyes. HMPH, Kyoka grumbled before taking note of something else, and the thought of revenge had come to her mind as she smiled evilly. Oh, but what's this? Izuku, did we stumble across a moment here? What do you, oh. Izuku crossed his arms with a chuckle. Hey, yeah, maybe we did. The acid and hardening users were perplexed by what they were saying, until they realized that they hadn't broken their hug. Both gasped and hastily broke away from one another. Wait, it's not what you think. Mina denied. Why yeah, we were just celebrating, is all. Eijiro scratched behind his head. Kyoka rolled her eyes and shook her head. Yeah, sure. Anyway, Has anyone seen Major Buzz Cut? You'd think he'd have handled his con by, blam. Now, the teens whipped their heads around and saw Burns coming toward them, all while a massive pillar of fire billowed up from behind him. And within that pillar, a Viacon could be seen, and it had been burned to a crisp. Yet somehow, it was still online. Eijiro had to blink to make sure he saw that right. Whoa, and I thought we were overkill. It's called efficiency, son. Burns remarked as he put his gloves back on. You learn it pretty well when you're in the military. He scanned his eyes around to see the other downed Viacons, nodding his head in approval. Nice work, kids. Maybe Fowler, Fairborn and I were a bit quick to judge whether you'd be able to take on these Viacons. Thank you, Agent Burns. Oh crap, look out. Izuku and the others were stunned to see the Viacon that Eijiro knocked out suddenly get right back up again. And although it couldn't use its legs, it could still crawl, and it had its sights set directly on the humans. The con raised one clawed hand and swiped it down at them. I'll kill all of you. Ishido. Eijiro tackled the pink girl to the ground as the hand passed over them. Kyok. Og. Before Izuku could even think to do the same to help his own friend, the hand came up and swiped Izuku away, sending him flying. A horrified gasp came out of Kyoka's throat the moment she saw Izuku's body hit the ground. Izuku. She started to sprint over to him, but the Viacon quickly crawled in her way, raising its clawed hand again to do the same thing to her. Kyoka froze in place as everything seemed to happen in slow motion, the gleaming talons of the Viacon coming right toward her. But just before that could happen, she suddenly felt herself get pushed out of the way. And then, crunch. Kyoka's head snapped up and she saw Burns where she once stood, the agent now crushed beneath the Viacon's hand. Just by looking at the scene, she could tell that he had to have a few broken body parts, but still, a part of her couldn't believe it. Burns had saved her. Agent Burns. She cried out. Gah, it's okay. Just get Izuku and run. Burns shouted back. That's an order. There won't be anywhere to run. The Viacon assured as he raised a singer, overing its tip over Burns' face. And once I'm done with all of you, the Autobots will think twice before, bam. Go. SMAAAAASH. Without warning, Izuku suddenly shot back onto the scene, covered in green lightning and with a furious expression as he punched the Viacon away. Its hand pulled away from Burns, which showed that indeed, he had an arm and a leg that were very much bent in the wrong direction. Izuku landed next to Kyoka and grasped her by the shoulders. Kyoka, are you okay? It took her a few seconds to comprehend what was happening, but Kyoka nodded up to him. Why yeah, but Burns. I know, come on. The two of them, along with Mina and Eijiro, rushed right over to the man's side, all while he tried to situate himself into a better position. Agent Burns. Please, try not to move. The agent winced in pain, sucking in air through his teeth at every move he made. Trust me, I'm trying now. He saw Kyoka approach him out the corner of his eye, and he offered her a small grin. Hey kid. Glad to see you're okay. You just sacrificed yourself for me. Kyoka muttered. Even after all that you said. Yeah. Burns nodded. It's what us soldiers do. No matter who it is, we're to help those who need to be helped, whether they like us or not. He gave her a small wink. I know you don't exactly trust me, kid, but in terms of your well-being, that's not a factor. Honestly, I'm just glad you're alright. That hit Kyoka like a ton of hammers. Despite all of the verbal abuse she put him through, Burns still put his life and body on the line, just to save her. Damn it, I've been a jerk. Oh, how touching. Everyone jumped and spun around as the Viacon once again returned, though this time he was back up, on one foot. But you all won't last much longer while I break all of your bodies, pew. And just like that, the Viacon stopped, a laser having been blasted through its chest. The lifeless husk fell forward and revealed a heavily damaged RC behind it, her pistol in one hand as she held onto an equally damaged Bumblebee with her other one. Well, that could have gone better. RC. Mina beamed in relief. Oh man, are we glad to see you. What happened to you guys? Eijiro wondered. You both look like you got into a big wreck or something. The pink femme holstered her pistol as she and B limped toward the group. Starscream happened to us. Apparently he must have gotten a big confidence boost with his brothers around, because, RC gasped the second she and B saw Burns with an arm and a leg bent in the incorrect directions. Oh my gosh, Burns. ZRKT, you're so broken. Burns grit his teeth and nodded slowly up to them. Yeah, pretty much. Think one of you can call back to base now so we can get a medical evac. Oh, of course. RC concurred, wasting no time in calling back to Red Alert. RC to base, come in, Red Alert. Soldier down, I repeat, soldier down. RC, what's going on over there? Red Alert exclaimed. We've been detecting several deception signals in your area and have been trying to contact you. Just then, Marissa's voice shouted out from the other side as well, are the children all right? Please tell me none of them are hurt. RC bit her lower lip hesitantly. She had a feeling that Marissa and Fowler weren't going to like what she had to say. Don't worry, the kids are all okay. Thanks to Burns, they're all safe, but you're going to want to get here soon. He got Kyoka out of a tight spot and, well, Marissa, I suggest you have your healing quirk ready. She craned her head back over to where the main battle was taking place, and she saw multiple laser blasts being shot all around. In red, send backup. Back at the battle itself, things were going, clang. Ow, not as well for Starscream as it had been earlier. Springer, the blasted wrecker, had proved to be a much more tenacious opponent. What RC had in determination, Springer matched with his annoying wit, which served to take Starscream off his game a bit. At the same time, he and the other Seekers had found themselves being corralled up with one another, with the Autobots having regained their bearings and surrounded them with their weapons raised. Had enough, bolts for brains. Springer challenged, before whistling for Sabak and Fangblade to join him. We can do this all day if y'all want. Gah! Skywarp shouted as he was practically punted in the head by Optimus after the Autobot leader flipped him in midair, which was followed by Bulkhead slamming him in the midsection with his mace. He was sent careening into Thundercracker, who had been shoved back by Jazz. And then, both Seekers collided with Starscream, creating a heap of wings and anger. Hey, what's the big idea? Thundercracker shouted. Skywarp growled and snapped his head toward his brother. What do you mean, what's the big idea? You got in my way. On the bottom of the pile, Starscream summoned all of his strength and tossed his brothers off in ire. Enough. Primus, do I have to mind you two all day, frag? The Seeker commander deadpanned at the sight of Prime, Bulkhead, Jazz, Springer, and the mini-cons having surrounded all of them, putting a pretty clear line between them and the Skyboom shield that was just within their sights. Not so high and mighty now, are ya? Jazz jibed with a smirk. Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, I am giving you one final chance. Optimus warned, keeping his ion blaster concentrated on the trio. Take your Viacons and leave this place now, or else we will be forced to take drastic measures. Bulkhead scowled at Skywarp and aimed his cannon at him. And don't even try to teleport away, Skywarp. I'm familiar with your little tricks now. The Seekers backed up to one another, making sure they had all four Autobots within their collective field of vision. What do we do? Thundercracker whispered. I doubt there's an easy way out of this. Starscream muttered frustratingly. They have us right where they want, Skywarp. Out the corner of his optic, he saw his darkly painted brother starting to glow a mysterious purple color, and his body started to blink in and out of existence. Don't worry, brothers, I have a solution to this little problem. Just then, the purple glow started to expand outward, encompassing the area where the Seekers stood. Death Spiral is ready. The Autobots held their guards up in preparation for something big, but then, Skywarp just disappeared. Hey! Bulkhead whipped around, ready for whatever trick the Seeker was going to pull. I said no. ZWOM. Die. Pow pow pow. All at once, Skywarp reappeared, fired off several shots, and then blinked out of existence to do the same at another position. And then again, and again, and again, and before long, the shots almost appeared to be coming from nowhere at all. From up above, it almost appeared as if the shots were spiraling out of the center of the purple glow, all while Skywarp kept porting around in the blink of an eye. Die. 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 Ha ha ha. The air was filled with the cries of Autobots as they got peppered with shots, and before long, they all fell flat on their backs and chests. Their bodies were riddled with blast holes, and while they were still alive, they were leaking energon like no one's business. The death spiral came to a stop and the purple glow faded, leaving Skywarp to stop and cross his shotguns over his chest. "Death walks among you," he uttered as his skull-shaped battle mask retracted. Starscream and Thundercracker eyed one another warily. "Does he have to be this edgy?" the Blue Seeker muttered, pulling back his own battle mask. "His color scheme has gone to his head." Starscream waved off the topic to focus back on the subject at hand. "But no matter. Because now, it is time to claim our prize." The three Seekers strolled up to the Skyboom shield and Starscream picked it up, basking in the gleaming shine in the weapon's finish. "Even after all these stellar cycles, it has not one scratch, amazing." Starscream, the Seekers spun around and saw Optimus Prime pushing himself to his feet, with Springer, Jazz and Bulkhead coming up right next to him. The four Autobots aimed their weapons at the cons, though it was obvious that their strength had been diminished from Skywarp's attack. "Release the Skyboom shield. It doesn't have to be this way." With a confident smirk, Starscream brushed off the demand. "Oh, but I think it does, Optimus. For you see, with the bounty that this planet holds, I am determined to gather every single one of these relics. Then, perhaps Megatron will finally recognize how deserving I am to lead the Decepticons." He raised his shield up to the bots, ready to use it for its true purpose. "And alas, your weapons might as well be puny pea shooters compared to this. Now tremble before the might of the Skyboom shield." There were a few moments of silence as the two sides faced off, and nothing happened. "Wait, what?" Skywarp tilted his head. "What do you mean, what? It's a shield, not rocket science." "I know what it's used for, you imbecile," Starscream snapped. "But as a relic of the Primes, the Skyboom shield is said to be able to project an impenetrable energy field around the wielder." He thrust the shield out in a vain attempt to get it to activate. "But it's not working." Thundercracker leaned in to see what the problem was. "You sure there's no button or switch to activate it?" "If there was, I would have found it by now," Starscream grumbled, all while failing to notice the sound of revving engines approaching. "There must be some way to activate. Wait, does anyone else hear to clash?" "Ow!" All three Seekers shouted out as a certain pair of red and yellow Lamborghinis came smashing into them from behind, with Thundercracker stumbling into the rock face while the two cars transformed on Starscream and Skywarp's backs. And most importantly, the Skyboom shield had been dropped. Optimus and the others were surprised, needless to say. Sideswipe, Sunstreaker. The twins gave them all a wave as they clung to the two Seekers' backs, all while they tried to toss them off. "Hey Prime," Sideswipe greeted. "Don't mind us, just here to save the day," Sunstreaker added. "Where the heck did you two come from?" Bulkhead exclaimed. Sideswipe gave Starscream a noogie as he answered, "RC called us in. Said you guys needed help, and honestly, can't blame her for thinking that, whoa. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK." The brothers were taken by surprise as Starscream and Skywarp transformed into jet mode and took off, the duo still clinging onto them. Okay, we're doing this now." The Autobots watched as the four of them went skyward, and Springer couldn't help but grin in amusement. "Ha ha ha, okay, those two boys have a lot of guts. I can respect them for talking on Seekers like that. Wouldn't be the first time." Jazz noted. "Those two are pretty famous for, oh, there it is." He pointed up as Sideswipe and Sunstreaker yanked their respective Seekers toward one another, resulting in a mid-air collision where all of them were sent hurtling back toward the Earth. "That's their patented jet judo. Woo. Get 'em, guys." As that was happening, Thundercracker was just starting to get up, shaking the daze out of his head. What the pit hit me." He started to get up, reaching to a rock for leverage, when suddenly, the rock moved, and from behind it, a bright glow could be seen. What the? His curiosity getting the better of him, Thundercracker moved the rock away, and was greeted with an astonishing discovery. Something else had been unearthed after he blasted that rock face, and he had to admit, it floored him. He had to hold back a gasp so that the other Autobots wouldn't notice. "Primus," he whispered, glancing back and forth between the shield and what he found, weighing his options. The Skyboom shield was closer to the Autobots, and thus, much riskier to go after. And arguably, what he found could be much more beneficial in the long run. Starscream would probably be angry with him for a little while, but, I have to get these. With his decision cemented, Thundercracker dug into the dirt and scooped out what he had discovered, quickly putting them inside his chest compartment for storage. Okay, now I have to, holy scrap. Look out below. Sideswipe announced as he and Sunstreaker hopped off of Starscream and Skywarp, the two Seekers transforming as they came crashing down into their brother. The Lambo twins landed on their feet and high-fived one another victoriously. Haha, another round of jet judo has been won, my man. And not a scratch on us. Sunstreaker added, only to see all three Seekers slowly stand up behind his brother. Bro, he pointed. Sideswipe noticed the large shadows looming behind him and spun around, only to be met with 3 pairs of blood-red optics and at least 5 gun barrels pointed at them. Maybe we're not as good at this as we thought. You're damned right. Skywarp snarled. Open fire. The sounds of laser blasts and screaming resonated throughout the area as the Seekers' blasts united in a massive explosion. A huge plume of smoke erupted from where the twins stood while Starscream and Skywarp burst out laughing at their victory. Ha ha ha, and that is how you scrap an Autobot. Oh, that felt very satisfying, indeed. Starscream concurred. Now, where's the Skyboom shield? But the Seeker commander trailed off as the smoke started to clear, and a brilliant golden light emerged from it. As it turned out, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker were alive, having been protected by a large energy field comprised of golden, hexagonal patterns. The source, the Skyboom shield itself, being held by none other than Optimus Prime. My apologies, Starscream, but as the humans say, it's time I rained on your parade. The Seekers were at a loss for words. How did you, why couldn't I? Optimus expanded the energy field around all of his Autobots, protecting them and the shield. Your assessment of the Skyboom shield was accurate. Solus Prime forged this shield to not only be impenetrable, but to safely protect many bots all at once. He reached his hand over and settled it over the shield's surface. But what you neglected to recall is that, being a relic of the Primes, only a Prime may wield its true power. So, it's useless to us. Starscream shouted, his optics twitching in rage. And that means this mission might as well have been a waste of time. Skywarp scoffed as he holstered his shotguns, while Thundercracker also put his weapon away. A shield that can't even be used by us properly. This blows so many gaskets. Starscream's fist shook in his anger, taking note of their battered and beaten Viacons, and even some that were dead altogether. Even if they brought the other Decepticons through, he knew there was no way they would put a dent into that shield's defenses. And what's more, he could see Windblade and Strongarm having arrived as well, leaving them very outmatched. I suggest you leave now, Starscream. Optimus advised. Or would you rather this end in a worse way than it already has for you? This injustice will not be forgotten, Optimus. Decepticons, return to base. At Starscream's command, a ground bridge opened up behind him and his forces all piled into the vortex. The Seekers all took a moment to glare back at the bots before going in as well, the ground bridge closing just as Windblade came in for a landing. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Optimus. The city speaker rushed over as Prime lowered the energy field, seeing her commander and the rest of her team all full of holes and leaking energon. By Primus, look at all of you. This is nothing. Bulkhead shrugged off, nudging Springer with a chuckle. Hey, you should have seen us after the Battle of Kyber 5, right, Springs? PSH, that hunk of rock was gonna blow up anyway. Springer rolled his optics as Strongarm pulled up, her 4 doors opening to allow Izuku, Kyoka, Mina and Eijiro to step out. Hey, would ya look who's all intact? He lowered himself down and gave them a nod. Seems like you guys came out the other end, okay. But Springer then saw that the kids didn't seem as happy as he was, leading him to tilt his head. You kids all right? We're fine, Kyoka emphasized. But Agent Burns isn't. She craned her head up to Optimus, a feeling of guilt churning in her gut. He's alive, but he got crushed beneath a Viacon's hand, to save me. Optimus and the others let that sink in, the Prime lowering his head in understanding. I see, he crouched down and set a hand onto Kyoka's shoulder reassuringly. Don't worry, Kyoka. I'm sure that Agent Burns will be alright. If Marissa can heal Izuku's wounds, she can likely heal his as well. Kyoka tapped her jacks together at that. I know, but I just feel guilty. I said all that dumb stuff to him and he still went out of his way to save me. Prime raised an eyelash at her. Well then, what do you suppose you should do? I guess I owe him an apology. Kyoka sighed. Man, I feel like a total. Let's not finish that sentence. Izuku interrupted. I've known you long enough to know that you aren't one of those. Mina came up and draped an arm over Kyoka's shoulder, offering a supportive smile. Yeah, Kyoka, no need to beat yourself up about it. Burns will be fine, and I'm sure he'll accept your apology, I just know it. Despite herself, Kyoka couldn't help but grin at her friend's unwavering support of her. Man, you guys are way too supportive. Hey, why wouldn't we be, right? We're a team. Eijiro cheered before glancing up toward the Skyboom shield. Speaking of, seems like teamwork netted us the shield. Strongarm transformed and placed her hands on her hips. Yeah, but by the looks of things, you all went through the pit to do it. But once again, Springer just shrugged it off. A few bullet holes, leak in energon, nearly blown to bits, just her average day for a wrecker, cadet. He moved around and saluted to Optimus Prime. All the same, like I said, I'll take responsibility for Burns' injuries, Commander. I'm willing to accept any punishment. Optimus stared at Springer for a moment, thinking it over in his head. Well, I suppose that will be up to Agent Burns' discretion. If the children had been injured, we'd be telling a much different story. He nodded in approval to all of his Autobots as he raised the Skyboom shield. But all the same, excellent work today, Autobots, and young heroes. He saw the children smile up at him before he went on. Now that we are in possession of the Skyboom shield, this will be our first step to Bleep. Optimus, come in. Do you read? Red alert. Optimus reached up to his comm, just as the other Autobots did. Go ahead. Well, the good news is that Agent Burns is already beginning to feel better. Red continued, which made the kids all brighten up. He may need some additional medical assistance, but Marissa managed to heal him for the most part. Jazz gave a thumbs up to the kids. Hey, well, that's great news. I'm sure the gang'll be happy to hear that. There was a momentary pause before Red went on. Yes, but that's only the first bit of news I have to share. The other concerns me greatly. The Autobots were all focused up as the medic shared what he had found. While you all were fighting the Decepticons, my scanners picked up 3 unidentified Cybertronian signals pop up in your area. Neither of them were Autobot or Decepticon in origin, however. Prime's metal brow furrowed in concern, while the others were all surprised and confused by the news. Is that so, Red Alert? Can you give me the exact coordinates of these signals? Well, that's the other bit of worrying news. They only appeared briefly before disappearing about 5 minutes later, almost as if they had vanished without a trace. 3 Cybertronians, neither bot or con. Izuku repeated. What do you think that could be, Optimus? I am unsure, Izuku. Optimus admitted, setting his sights off to the distance. But it truly is perplexing. I can only hope that this isn't some sort of Decepticon trick. At the dark side, meanwhile, the atmosphere wasn't exactly as positive. Swift and the other Decepticons stood in front of the ground bridge as the Viacons hobbled in, followed by Thundercracker, Skywarp, and a very upset Starscream. The scowl he wore on his face told everyone that he was not to be messed with, so Swift decided to do the exact opposite. So, things didn't go well. As expected, she saw Starscream's body tremble with rage and he stormed up to her angrily. But before he could do anything, Skywarp stopped him in his tracks and answered, HMPH, understatement on the stellar cycle, Swift. We were outgunned and our forces took a beating, so we decided a tactical retreat would be for the best. And you didn't think to call all of us in, why? Nitra asked as she gestured to herself and the others. Starscream made some annoyed sounds and twitched some more before he slammed his head against the wall several times. Meaning that Thundercracker had to provide an answer. Trust me, Nitra, even with all of us there, none of us probably would have made it past that shield's defenses. Knowing Prime, he probably would have raised the energy field the second he saw all of you come through the ground bridge. We will find some way to retrieve it, though. Skywarp assured. That shield's too valuable to stay in Autobot hands for. Ah. QQQ. Without warning, Starscream shot his null ray at a random wall, blowing it up in a fiery blaze. The other Decepticons under his command all flinched and backed off as the Seeker commander whipped around toward his brothers. I cannot believe this. I brought you two in specifically so that we could have a fighting chance against those Autobots, and this is how you two repay me. With failure. Skywarp grit his metal teeth and pointed at Starscream. Oh, you don't think we're mad about this, too, Starscream? Because guess what? We are. We thought that joining up with you would land us some well-needed victories, but nope. Nothing. He craned his head toward Nitra and Shadow Striker, the two femmes eyeing him warily. Maybe coming to this planet was a mistake on our part. Come, let's. Wait. Thundercracker jumped in, putting his arms up between his Seeker brethren. Brothers, please, I can assure you that you're both jumping the gun here. Sure, we may not have gotten the Skyboom shield. He opened up his chest compartment, knowing that his brothers would be pleased by what he had found. But when you see that I managed to recover, I'm sure you'll be singing a different tune. Thundercracker, whatever this is, it had better be, what? Starscream's optics widened as a bright green glow suddenly emerged from his brother's chest, one that completely enveloped the dimly lit room. The other Decepticons were taken aback, not just by the light, but what Thundercracker was holding for them all to see. Number way. Swift muttered. Barricade was almost at a loss for words. What the pit are those doing on Earth? Flatline shook his head. I could not tell you, mean Freund, but I must say, Thundercracker, you are quite lucky. Shadow Striker and Nitra smirked simultaneously, the former glancing over to Skywarp. So, are we still leaving? The proud grin on the Seeker's face was all she needed for an answer. I thought not. Starscream approached Thundercracker to get a closer look at what his brother had found, still trying to process it all. In the blue Seeker's hands were three small, green panels, all of which were pentagonal in shape. They were as green as the glow they produced, and in their center was a small insignia inside of a diamond-shaped logo, that of a stylized M. So, still think this mission was a failure? Thundercracker questioned. With a proud, yet nefarious smirk of his own, Starscream placed his hand on Thundercracker's shoulder in approval. Brother, this is quite the find, indeed. I believe it's safe to say that you have saved this mission. Now, what say we bring these new little friends of ours out so we can meet them? Thundercracker nodded and placed his other hand lightly over the panels, and they began to glow with much more intensity, erupting into three pillars of light. The Autobots will have no idea what hit them, until it's too late. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 9 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.